should put that in your remarks. You can. Good. Good morning. No, off. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started in 2 minutes, so please take your seats. All right, who's ready to get this party started? Good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. Thanks for being here. A little housekeeping. Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay, great. Little housekeeping. The bathrooms to the left of the registration are open now. Louder, better. The bathrooms to the left of registration are open now, and there are light refreshments in the cafeteria. All right, we're gonna get going. So most of you know me. I'm Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly from Nashua. I'm so excited to be your co-chair this year and to welcome you to the 2022 New Hampshire Democratic Party Convention. As I mentioned, I'm an alderwoman at large in Nashua. I got my crew right here. I am also running for Executive Council in District 5.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm Peter Argyropoulos. I am a proud public school teacher, and I'm an at-large Board of School Committeeman right here in the great city of Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm also grateful and thankful to be here today at Memorial High School. Now, several years ago when I was a student here, I actually gave my very first speech for the class vice president right here, which I did go on to win, and I would like to say that that kind of has led to this moment. So it's great to be back here at Memorial, and we are thrilled to be serving as the 2022 State Democratic Party Convention co-chairs today.
I might just take this out. Okay. I was brought up to believe that anyone, no matter your social or economic position in life, can reach their full potential in this country. As young people growing up in New Hampshire, we always took for granted that our lives would be better than our parents and that our children's lives would be better than our own. But in recent years, it has become abundantly clear that there are those in our nation and our local politics who want to take us backward. If they get their way, they will repeal reproductive rights, cut funding for public schools in our most underserved communities, allow rampant gun violence to continue unchecked, and fail to address the urgent climate crisis. Time and time again, Republicans in Washington and in Concord have demonstrated their unwillingness to show courage and act in the best interests of their constituents.
But we're lucky, because the Democratic Party in New Hampshire offers an alternative, right? We stand for equal rights for every Granite Stater to determine their own course. We believe that strong public schools are the cornerstone of our communities. We believe that we need to be building up our teachers, giving them the conditions necessary for the success of our children. We believe that everyone should live their daily lives free of fear from gun violence, and that protecting our water, forests, and climate is not only the right thing to do, but it is our generation's obligation to future generations. So today we ask, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? As I'm sure many of you in this room can relate, Alderwoman Kelly and I did not always see ourselves entering electoral politics. But there comes a time when you can no longer remain on the sidelines. All of us in this room have felt compelled to speak up, to take a stand, and to get in the fight to move this great state forward.
That's why we all have a responsibility to get out there and knock doors, make phone calls. Organized New Hampshire is here today out in the hallway, and I ask each one of you to sign up before leaving. And for those of you who are at home, you can go to organizednewhampshire.org and sign up. We're going to need everybody for this fight.
This fall, New Hampshire has the chance to show the world that progressive values are alive and well here in the Granite State. So, together, let's go win this thing. And let's get this show on the road. Please welcome the leaders of the New Hampshire High School Democrats to lead us in today's Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to read aloud the land acknowledgement, please welcome Cora Kisimbi King. I got it right? Come on up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cora Kissambing King of the Dover Dems. Of Stratford County. I am the co-chair of the New Hampshire Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus. It is my honor to read our state's land acknowledgement on Immigrant Heritage Month. May we who are immigrants or descendants of immigrants remember there were those who were here before us and who are still amongst us. Let me declare our 2022 State Convention takes place in New Hampshire within Indakina, which is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Pennacook, Abenaki, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. New Hampshire acknowledges and honors with gratitude the spiritual and physical connection to the Aki, land, Nebi, water, Olaku, Ika, flora, and Aua, Asak, fauna of the Alnobak, who have stewarded Indakina throughout the generations.
She's not coming.
She's right over there.
She is? Oh.
And next up, I am proud to introduce the mayor of our great city here in Manchester, Mayor Joyce Craig.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, fellow Democrats, and welcome to Manchester. It is so wonderful to be back at Memorial High School, my alma mater, with all of you to kick off the summer of organizing and get ready for big wins up and down the ballot in November. In our most recent elections here in Manchester, we bucked the national trends and won Democratic majorities on both the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Board of School Committee. This didn't happen by accident. We won by running candidates like our co-host Peter Argyropoulos, former Fire Chief Jim Burkish, and the Dumphy Canteras Award winner, Mary Heath, who are all deeply connected to their communities and were willing to put in the work to work with our community and to listen to what our residents had to say, which is so critical when it comes down to winning these elections. And that's exactly what we need to do now through November. That's how we're going to send Maggie, Chris, and Annie back to Congress. It's exactly how we're going to elect Tom Sherman as our next governor. And it's how we're going to elect Democratic State Senate, House, and Executive Council. Showing up here today is important, but it's just the beginning. We all need to volunteer to knock doors and make phone calls, because here in New Hampshire, we've proven that if we put in the work, we can win these tough elections. Thank you again for joining us here in Manchester, and I hope after today you'll join me in our downtown at Arms Park for the Queen City Pride Festival. It promises to be a great time, and I hope that you'll join me down there and enjoy all of what our community has to offer. Thank you. All right, up next, I'd like to introduce you all to our convention officers today. Secretary Carlos Cardona, our treasurer, Cora Kissambing King, and parliamentarian Bill Christie.
And we also also have our Sergeant at Arms with us today. We'd like to recognize Stratford County Sheriff Mark Brave. Merrimack County Sheriff David Croft. Cheshire County Sheriff Eli Rivera. And Grafton County Sheriff Jeff Stiegler. And now, I have the privilege to introduce our wonderful, fantastic, great State Party Chairman, Raymond Buckley.
Thank you, Shoshana and Peter. Let's give them a big round of applause. I know they're going to keep today going right on time. Serving as convention co-chairs is a long honor, but it's a lot of hard work, and I just want to make sure that we thank them for everything that they're doing. I want to start off by recognizing some of our great leaders that we have working so hard to build the party up. First off, our county chairs. Belknap County Chair Lynn Thomas. Carroll County Chair Ed Butler. Cheshire County Chair Mohammed Salih. Coas County Chair Henry Noel. Grafton County Chair Ann Garland. Hillsborough County Chair Roger Lessard. Manchester City Chair Alan Raff. Merrimack County Chair Chris Mueller. Nashua City Chair Representative Michael Peterson. Rockingham County Chair Larry Drake. Stratford County Chair Walter King. Sullivan County Chair John Streeter. Let's give them all a big round of applause. And while we're at it, if you are a town chair or a city chair or a ward chair, please stand up and be recognized. I'd like to now introduce our hard-working officers of the state party. Our first vice chair, Senator Martha Fuller Clark. Second vice chair, Senator Betty Lasky. Secretary Maitri Chinnity. Treasurer, the Honorable Caitlin Rollo. DNC National Committee Man, the Honorable Bill Shaheen. DNC National Committee Woman, Senator Donna Soucy. DNC at Large and DNC Rules Committee member, Joanne Dowdell. And doing double duty, our legal counsel, Bill Christie. And our finance chair, Maura Sullivan. Give them all a big round of applause. Now, I know it's a long list, but bear with me. Let's recognize and thank our hardworking state party staff, Executive Director Troy Price, Senior Advisor Ryan Mahoney, Operations Director Jody Clooney, Communications Director David Porchestari, Data Director Jack Chabellin, Political Director Mike Parsons, Finance Director Jack Siegel, Party Affairs Director Josh Query, Press Secretary Monica Bensky, Legislative Communications Director Colin Booth, Deputy Political Director Megan Murray, Deputy Political Director Graham Ayers, Administrative Assistant Maddie McCluskey, and Emma Mintz, our Voter Protection Director, who's going to make sure everyone gets to vote. And as you all know, our coordinated campaign, Organize NH, led by Andrea Nememchek, has been up and running for 6 months already, and we are thrilled to be joined by the organizing director today, Amy Lobb, who will be you'll be hearing from later in the program on some critical updates on the way that you all can be involved. So let's give them all a big round of applause. So good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. Are you ready to re-elect Maggie Hassan to the U.S. Senate? Chris Pappas to Congress? Annie Custer to Congress? Are you ready to finally get rid of Chris Sununu and elect Tom Sherman, governor of the state of New Hampshire? I don't know if you all noticed, but there's a tweet out there that says the Coos County Republican Committee just voted to chastise and admonish the governor. And I said, well, that's a good start. Let's make sure the voters do that in November. Are you ready to elect Democratic majorities on the Executive Council? The State Senate? The House? And double our county officers? Now, are you ready to knock on doors? Are you ready to work like hell for the next 5 months? We have shocked the nation before when we have been able to win elections when around the country it was being a tough November election night. Let's do that again. Let's shock them again. Thank you so much. It is now time to give our first award of the day, the Peter Ho-Burling Legislative Leader Award. And it's given to a state legislator who has time and time again shown their commitment to fighting for the people of New Hampshire. Peter couldn't be with us today, but he asked me to read this about today's award winner. There's one thing I can say with absolute confidence about the New Hampshire legislature in 2022. I would have been so honored to have served with every one of you in the New Hampshire House and Senate. You have made us all so proud. You, our Democratic legislators, have really stood up for us over the last few years, demonstrating courage and fortitude. In the fight for New Hampshire's future, you are always there. So it is hard to say that there's just one person in this branch who has exceeded the excellent effort turned in by all the Democrats who have stood up for us. But this one legislator has exceeded all efforts through the exercise of hard work, political sophistication, and generosity of spirit. This person has shown time and time again that legislating for the good of our citizens, not the special interests, is the right way to go. So it is with great pleasure that I announce the winner of this year's Burling Award is Tom Sherman, doctor, senator, and the next governor of the state of New Hampshire.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, everybody. I have gotten to know Peter and his legend of how he performed in the Senate. And one of the things that I feel is really a hallmark is not only what you get done, but how you get it done. And I am so honored to get this award with the name of somebody who has shown us all how to get things done. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again to Dr. Tom Sherman, the next governor of the state of New Hampshire. And next up, the Credentials Committee is tasked with making sure all of our delegates are properly credentialed and notified for this convention. This year's committee did a great job in doing so, and I'm honored to introduce Senator Martha Fuller Clark to give this year's Credentials Committee report.
Good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. It's great to see you all here today. And are we going to win in November? Yes! I'm very honored to be here today on behalf of the Credentials Committee, particularly since the conventions over the last 2 years have looked a little different than what we are used to. But that is why we are so excited for our first in-person convention since 2020. We have so many great Democrats joining us today, both here in the convention hall and joining from home online. What a change is that? We're excited to hold a convention that is accessible for Democrats all across the state. And we are continuing to be conscious of the continuing COVID-19 pandemic and recognize that there are those who would like to be with us today but have decided that it is better for them to participate online. This year, I am pleased to announce that we have 1,408 registered delegates here with us today. Thank you all for coming. These delegates are composed of our 2020 state and county nominees, the New Hampshire Democratic Party state committee members, our county, city, and town officers, and the officers of the New Hampshire Young Democrats. This year, we are holding the convention open for 2 weeks so that everyone will have the opportunity to cast their ballot. We will be announcing the total of our vote at the next state committee meeting and posting it on our website for everyone here to see. You will be hearing this morning more about our convention rules as well. But first, I want to thank the Credentials Committee members for all their hard work. It includes Nikki Argan, Lisa DeMaio, Sean Doyle, Carney Paconi, Mohammed Salah, and Donald Stokes. Okay, so now it's time to get back to hearing from all of our fantastic speakers that we have lined up for you this morning. And don't forget that we need to make sure that we win this coming November. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Senator Clark. There's no harder working group of people in Washington than our federal delegation. Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, Congresswoman Custer, and Congresswoman Pappas work hard every day and bring the voice of the Granite Staters with them. Whether it's standing up for reproductive freedom, working to lower the costs for Granite Staters, building our infrastructure, or bringing much needed funds to grow our communities, these four leaders have made a name for themselves as people who get things done. This fall, control of the U.S. House and Senate will come down to the races here in New Hampshire. And I know all Democrats stand ready to do their part to make sure we send Senator Hassan, Congresswoman Custer, and Congressman Pappas back to Washington for another term. Now, without further ado, please help me in welcoming your U.S. Senator of New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen.
Yes, please. Thank you. Good morning. Morning. Thank you. Sit down. Good morning, New Hampshire Democrats here in the room and online. It is so great to be with all of you this morning, and so pleased to see all of the party officers, including my husband here. He made sure I got out of the house on time this morning, you know, and all of the convention officers. So what a great job you have all done, and for the party continue to do. Thank you very much. I'm also very pleased to welcome our two special guests to today's events. I had a chance to meet Governor Pritzker last night at the McIntyre-Shaheen dinner. He is providing groundbreaking leadership in Illinois as their governor. He's made the biggest investment in the state's history in infrastructure, and he did it while balancing the budget and correcting the fiscal mismanagement of the previous Republican governor. So he is very impressive. And of course, I am so happy that our friend and neighbor, Marty Walsh, Secretary of Labor, is here today. It is so great to have someone who understands organized labor back as the Secretary of Labor in Washington. Now, you all know, as I do, that we face serious challenges in New Hampshire and in this country, from gun violence to climate change to ongoing threats to our democracy. But I think it's important to start by taking a minute to remind ourselves of what has been accomplished in just not even 2 years under Joe Biden's presidency. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which has raised millions of families from poverty and created millions of jobs. The American Rescue Plan has made tens of millions of dollars available here in New Hampshire. And I reject the notion that the American Rescue Plan and all of its work to save people in this country is responsible for the inflation that we're experiencing right now. And I was proud to be one of 5 Democrats who worked with 5 Republicans to negotiate the biggest infrastructure investment in this country since the 1950s when Eisenhower was president. We are investing to ensure that people have access to clean water, so we replace our failing roads and bridges. We're making the biggest investments in our power grid, electric vehicle chargers, and climate resilience in this country's history. We have saved the postal system, which matters to everybody in this country. And we have restored America's leadership in the world. Donald Trump wanted to destroy NATO. Well, under Joe Biden's leadership, NATO has been strengthened and we have re-engaged with our allies. And President Biden nominated, and the Senate confirmed, the first black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. Yes, she deserves a standing ovation. Absolutely. Thank you. Of course, that's the good news about the Supreme Court. The bad news about the Supreme Court, as we know, is that any day we expect they will issue a decree overturning Roe v. Wade. That's why we must fight now, more than ever, to protect a woman's right to choose. And whatever the Supreme Court says, as women, we have the right to make our own decisions about our own health care and our reproductive futures. And I don't know about you, but I've had enough of Governor Sununu trying to pretend that he's pro-choice. You know? Pro-choice governors do not sign abortion bans, and pro-choice governors do not allow their party to defund Planned Parenthood clinics, and pro-choice governors do not stand by and allow access to reproductive health care be undermined. You know, Chris Sununu is a guy who thinks he should get credit for crises that he's created. Well, New Hampshire women and New Hampshire voters deserve better. We also need to stop gun violence. While I am pleased that after 30 years, we're finally seeing a bipartisan agreement to make some steps to address gun violence, I am very disappointed that even after Buffalo and Uvalde, that the Republicans did not have enough courage to ban children, 18-year-olds, from getting access to assault weapons. We need to do better, and we need to ban assault weapons. We need to limit the size of magazines, and we need Republicans who are going to have the courage to join Democrats to do that. Now, I know that inflation is too high, that families are challenged with high costs, especially at the gas pump. But we can't let that be a reason why we let up the pressure on Russia and let them win this unprovoked war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is a vicious bully, and he has got to be stopped. And if we don't do it now and let the brave Ukrainians fight and support them in that effort, then we are going to be faced with Putin recreating the Soviet empire. And that is not in America's interest, it's not in our allies' interest, and we cannot let that happen. You know, thank you, I agree. We cannot let that happen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. You know, 5 years ago, Vladimir Putin said I could never go to Russia because of my outspoken criticism of him. He thought that ban was a punishment for me. Well, I see that as a badge of honor. We all know there is so much at stake in this year's elections, and we can't afford to sit them out. We have got to re-elect Maggie Hassan. We've got to send Chris Pappas and Annie Kuster back to the House. We've got to restore Democratic majorities in the New Hampshire House, the State Senate, and on the Executive Council. Maggie, Annie, Chris, and I have worked really hard in the last couple of years to try and make sure that we can return support to help New Hampshire families. We know that the costs of childcare, of housing, of food are too high for too many people. But what have we seen here in New Hampshire from Chris Sununu? He won't even use the federal funding that we brought back to the state. For over a year, Chris Sununu has been sitting on almost $30 million in funding for childcare that could be used by childcare providers to recruit and retain staff, that could be used by New Hampshire families who are struggling with the high costs of childcare. And he's still not releasing that money. And he's got a plan that could be written on the back of a napkin. It's so sparse. $18 million in rental assistance has been lost because of Sununu's failure to get funds out the door to renters who are in need. And thousands of New Hampshire renters are still on a wait list for assistance. Federal mortgage assistance for New Hampshire families has been delayed for over a year because of Sununu's failure to launch a program. And then when he launches the program, he doesn't give it to the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, who has real understanding of how to do housing. No, he gives it to the Economic Bureau, where they've never done housing. Funding to create affordable housing under Sununu's plan was delayed for months when the rest of the New England states were putting money into creating affordable housing. John Sununu was sitting on $600 million in federal money. And when he finally offered his plan, Councilor Warmington did a great job last night at the dinner talking about her efforts to do something about this housing plan that he put on the table that didn't mention affordable one time. So thanks to Cindy and the Executive Council, he was forced to go back and redo his plan. And last fall, New Hampshire sent back almost $200,000 in money for food. Why? Because Chris Sununu said we didn't need it. Well, I don't know what you're hearing from some of the people in your communities, but I can tell you we have people who are still food insecure in this state, and we need to do everything we can to help them. We have had enough of Chris Sununu. It is time to send Tom Sherman to the corner office. So we have a lot to do. We're counting on you, on your efforts to knock on doors, to make phone calls, to get your friends and neighbors engaged in this campaign, because we can't afford another 2 years of Chris Sununu, the majority, the Republican majority in the House and Senate and on the Executive Council. We've got to support Joe Biden. We've got to return our federal delegation, and it's up to you to make that happen. So thank you all very much for everything that you do. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And now I have the pleasure of welcoming to the stage Congressman Pappas. Change of plans. I got it right the first time. I now have the pleasure of welcoming to the stage Congresswoman Custer.
It's all good. It's all good. Good morning and hello everybody. Happy convention. Thank you for being here in person, online, however you can join the Democrats in New Hampshire. We need you and we're happy to have you with us. Thank you to Chairman Buckley, to Troy Price, Governor Pritzker, welcome to New Hampshire, and we're always excited to have Secretary Marty Walsh with us. And thank you to the entire Democratic Party. Thank you for your service, all of our officers, all of our convention officers. To the candidates in the building, thank you to Tom Sherman running for governor, Cindy Warmington for the amazing work you're doing on the Executive Council. And to our senators and Senate candidates and reps and House candidates, we will take back the State House in November. What a 2 years it's been since we were together live. 18 months ago, I was literally running for my life as I escaped the gallery in the U.S. Capitol just 30 seconds before a thundering mob of insurrectionists almost reached us in their attempt to overturn the election. And since that fateful day, my team and I have been working hard every day, tackling the crises as they piled up. But Raymond, I'm skipping 3 pages of crises just to move this along. The truth is that in March of 2020, we faced a total economic collapse in the face of a highly contagious worldwide pandemic. But I'm proud to say Congress stepped up. We invested in research for the COVID vaccine and treatments and PPE for healthcare workers and first responders. And while we mourn those who we lost, I know through our decisive action we saved countless lives. Congress passed the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Plan to save families and hospitals and small businesses and schools and colleges and theaters and restaurants, and the list goes on. At the height of the pandemic, unemployment in New Hampshire reached 16%, but now we are right back down to 2.3%. Workers have jobs and wages have gone up, home equity has risen, and even retirement savings has grown. Now, I am no Pollyanna. Trust me, I spend my days helping families who are struggling with the high cost of food and gas and rent. Just this week, Chris and I voted to pass the Lower Food and Fuel Costs Act to help working families in the grocery store and at the pump. The truth is that every family deserves access to affordable health care, a 21st century education with high-speed internet, a safe home with healthy food on the table, and peace and stability in our world. We have some big problems, that's certainly true. But we have smart, innovative solutions too, and working together, not as red states and blue states, but as the United States, we can build on our progress. We're making our communities safer by passing bipartisan gun violence prevention legislation. Stronger by passing the Competes Act to invest in our supply chain and create more 21st century jobs right here in New Hampshire and across this country. Healthier by lowering prescription drug costs and addressing addiction and investing in mental health treatment. And more resilient by passing bold climate change legislation, including incentives for renewable energy, electric vehicles, and carbon capture technology. So please, in November and every day until Election Day, stand with me for a stronger economy with higher paying jobs and union benefits for hardworking families. Stand with me for access to affordable health care, housing, healthy food, and reliable internet. Stand with me to combat climate change and save our planet. And stand with me for a 21st century education for every student in a safe school, free from discrimination and gun violence. And stand with me to protect access to safe, legal abortion, marriage equality, birth control, and safe communities for every Granite Stater. Because no matter where you live, who you love, and where you work or worship, together we will win and make the world a better place for everyone right here in New Hampshire. Thank you. Thank you. Now this morning I have the opportunity to present the 2022 Anne McLean Custer Community Leader Award to a very good friend and a very deserving recipient. Sadly, Manny Espitia could not be with us this morning, but many of you know him as a tireless leader in Nashua, an amazing state legislator, and he has fought to make New Hampshire's economy work for everyone, to expand voting rights and voting access, and to ensure that every community is engaged here in New Hampshire. Thank you, Manny. Thank you for our service to your state. Thank you for your friendship. And now I have the privilege and opportunity to introduce my good friend and colleague, Chris Pappas, a relentless advocate for New Hampshire families and seniors, working to lower costs and make businesses thrive and defend a woman's right to choice. Thank you all.
Good job. See you soon. All right. All right. Hey, how are you guys? How's it going? Good. Well, good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. Great to be with you all in the fabulous Queen City. Happy Pride Month to everyone, by the way. It's a nice Pride celebration here in Manchester later today. And thank you to my dear friend and colleague, Annie Custer, for that introduction and for her commitment to the people of New Hampshire. Isn't it wonderful to have two competitive districts here in New Hampshire for Congress?
So that cuts both ways. It's both an opportunity and a responsibility, right? Now that we've got the 2 fair competitive districts, we got to go out and fight and win them. So I'm counting on your help for that. So thank you to all of our party officials who are here, Chairman Buckley, Troy, and the NHDP staff, the executive committee, all of our volunteers and activists, county, local chairs, and folks who are elected at all levels of the party. This is your year, this is your party, and we're going to fight like heck to make sure we have a great showing in November of 2022. So I want to thank all of our other guests, too, who are joining us here today. I know we're hearing from Marty Walsh a little bit later. Marty, I saw him walking around out back. He does a terrific job speaking up for the working people, which is the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. And I know we're going to be joined by Governor J.B. Pritzker as well from Illinois. Isn't that terrific? Isn't it good to have at least one pro-choice governor in New Hampshire today? And so that's what we've got with Governor J.B. Pritzker. But one's on the way, because we've got Tom Sherman running for governor. He's going to beat Chris Sununu in November. So look, it's good to be with you, good to be in person and back together. And this continues to be a challenging time. We know it, we see it, we feel it. But thanks to Democrats in Congress, we're delivering for this country. Now, we delivered shots in arms for tens of millions of Americans when they needed it. We delivered a middle-class tax cut for 77% of American families, and we cut child poverty in half, by the way, with that tax cut. And we delivered relief to families and to Main Street businesses that were threatened by closing their doors during this pandemic, and now they're opening and our main streets are thriving. We kept the lights on, and we kept 120,000 folks employed through the Paycheck Protection Program and other relief programs that Democrats passed. So, and I should also mention we got our schools back open, by the way, and made sure that we provided direct support to school districts all across New Hampshire in this country. Democrats did that, and we didn't get any help from Republicans. They voted against these survival checks. They voted against funding to reopen our schools. They voted against that middle-class tax cut that cut child poverty in half. And yes, they voted against direct funding to local governments that funded our police officers, our fire departments, our first responders. So there's a record here, and we're going to be talking about this in this campaign. But we've got more work to do in Washington as well to meet the challenges of today. And I'm proud of what we're doing in the House. When we can work with Republicans, we do it, by the way. And we passed a major infrastructure bill that's investing a record amount of money in our roads and bridges and high-speed broadband and safe, clean drinking water here in New Hampshire. Democrats did that with some cooperation. And we're working to take on the big drug companies that continue to gouge patients across this country and earn record profits at our expense. I'm proud in the House that we are fighting for, and we passed the PRO Act, which makes sure that Granite State workers have the right to stand together and bargain for better wages, fair working conditions, and better benefits. And I mentioned Pride Month. We passed the Equality Act. We're waiting on the Senate to do the same, because you should be able to love who you want to love and be who you want to be in this country. We passed legislation and continue to work to honor the service of our veterans. And we're going to pass a bill next week and send it to President Biden's desk to honor the service of those veterans who have been exposed to toxic substances and burn pits. 3.5 million veterans are going to get connected to care because of the work that we're going to do passing that law. Now, I'm not giving up on this. We passed the For the People Act in the House to take the big money influence out of our political system and put the power of our democracy back in your hands where it belongs. And of course, I know our other speakers have mentioned it, but we can't mention it enough, the Women's Health Protection Act. We need federal and state protections for women and families to get access to the care that they need, including abortion care. So this is about what we stand for and what we can accomplish when we stand together, but it's clearly more than just about a list of bills that we've passed or laws that have been signed into law, because for me, as someone who grew up not too far from here, it's always about the people that we represent. It's about the stories that I hear each and every day. I met a family recently in Manchester that pays 3 times their mortgage on childcare. And that's why we're going to continue to fight for affordable, quality child care and early child education in this country. I met a business owner a couple years ago in the throes of the pandemic. He told me he wasn't big on government help, but that PPP loan saved his multi-generational family business and dozens of jobs at his company in Hooksett. And Democrats delivered that. And I think of a single mother that I met who used the child tax credit payment that we approved to finally repair the leaky roof that she had, because she couldn't do it because of the cost. I talked to another family that was able to repair a car and ensured that both parents could return to work. So those are the people that we're speaking up for and that we represent. And I think it's clear that Republicans either don't hear these stories, they choose not to listen to them, or they're just willfully ignoring them. Because it appears that they're more interested in groveling for Donald Trump's endorsement in our campaign. You know, more are interested in overturning Roe v. Wade and having the government mandate women, what women can do with their body. They're more interested in standing in the way of bipartisan legislation, including the infrastructure package that we passed. And they're more interested in cozying up to big pharma and the big oil companies than they are in ensuring that our families can pay the bills and meet their obligations. So the difference is clear and stark. You know, we're continuing to fight for legislation that takes on the issue of gun violence and will save lives in our communities here and across the country. But I've got an opponent in my race who's raffling off AR-15s as a fundraiser. Shows you where he stands. I'm proud that I voted for the Women's Health Protection Act in the House. I'll do it again to codify Roe v. Wade. All of my opponents in this race, every single one supports overturning Roe. One even tried to claim that this wasn't about women's health care at all or women's rights, and we know that's not true. Now, Senator Shaheen mentioned this, and we're very proud of the work that we've done to impose crippling sanctions on Vladimir Putin and Russian oligarchs. We've gotten ourselves permanently banned from Russia, which is just okay by me. But one of my opponents actually called me a traitor for supporting these sanctions and for supporting Ukraine. Well, let me tell you this. There is nothing more patriotic and nothing more American than supporting freedom and democracy and the people of Ukraine right now when they need our help. And I've got another opponent too, Matt Mowers. You've probably heard about him a little bit. He voted in a couple different states in the same election once. But he's cashing checks as Big Pharma's DC consultant and shadow lobbyist, and he's actually opposing efforts to negotiate cheaper drug prices for American patients and consumers under the Medicare program. He wants bigger bills for American families and bigger profits for Big Pharma, and that's just wrong for New Hampshire. So, all these candidates who continue to spread the big lie about what happened on January 6th, they're out of step with the people of New Hampshire, and they're not doing what's necessary at this crucial juncture for our country to protect and safeguard our democracy. Now, this is the same dangerous lie that led to the deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th and the deaths of 5 law enforcement officials and injuries to 150 more who were defending our Capitol and were simply doing their jobs that day. So let's get one thing clear. You can't say back the blue and then beg for the endorsement of the man who summoned a violent attack to the Capitol on January 6th. So there is more to do, and collectively we can do it. There's more work to bring down energy costs, more work to lower grocery bills, more work to find relief for Granite Staters at the pump. There's more work to do to make sure that American manufacturing and workers are supported and that we can outcompete any nation of the world, including China. And there's more work to do to win in November. So this election really is about people. It's about our ability to deliver for those who are counting on us, about our ability to continue this fight, to build a future so that everyone can thrive. And it's also about, to paraphrase Lincoln, whether government of the people, by the people, and for the people will perish or will persist. That is in your hands this year in 2022. So it's not just our responsibility as Democrats to get out there and fight and turn out the vote. It's our patriotic duty as Americans to do it. And I hope you'll join me in that fight. We've got a tough race, but I know New Hampshire Democrats have proven time and again that we can win these tough fights, that we can build the coalitions we need to not just win in November, but to deliver for the next 2 years, and I'm counting on your help to do just that. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you. Thanks, folks. So with that, I'm going to bring up our next speaker. We've got a tireless delegation in Washington that works each and every day going to bat for the people of New Hampshire. We've got not one, but two women trailblazers who have been the first women to serve as governor and U.S. senator. And I'm going to introduce the second one. But really, when you think about the issues of the day and the work that gets done in our nation's capital, Maggie Hassan is right in the thick of it. If there's a problem to be solved, Maggie Hassan is rolling up her sleeves, and she's doing it. Whether it's how to lower the prices of gas at the pump, or how to make sure that you don't all receive surprise medical bills, or how we provide the relief that we need to Granite State businesses and families, she's doing it each and every day. I'm proud to call her a friend. Let's work like heck to make sure that Maggie wins her race in November. And please welcome our United States Senator Maggie Hassan.
Well, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. Thank you. Hey, thank you guys. Thank you to Congressman Chris Pappas for that introduction. Chris, you've been a champion for Granite Staters, and I know that we all will work as hard as we can to re-elect you in November. And it's also great to know that we are joined today by two great friends of New Hampshire. Marty Walsh is somewhere in the House, so Secretary Walsh, thank you for being here, and thanks for all you do for the working people of Granite State and the country. And I know you're all going to hear from Governor Pritzker later on, and it's really great to have J.B. Pritzker in New Hampshire. He has shown such leadership as governor of Illinois, really standing up for Illinois' families. So I'm really grateful to these two friends of New Hampshire for giving us their time and insights today. But mostly, though, I just want to say a huge thank you to New Hampshire Democrats. Your hard work won this Senate seat in 2016 by 1,017 votes. And I am so grateful for everything that you all do to keep our party strong. During my time in public service, I have really sought to follow the example that Granite Staters set of listening to each other and solving problems. On issue after issue, I've worked to get results on the priorities that matter to you. When I heard stories from Granite Staters who were facing thousands of dollars in unexpected medical bills, I knew we had to do something. That's why I worked across party lines and took on the entire healthcare industry to end the absurd practice of surprise medical billing. For years, I've heard from Granite Staters who say that our crumbling infrastructure is holding our economy back. That's why Senator Shaheen and I worked to bring Republicans and Democrats together and pass the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'm running for re-election because there's more work to do. I have heard from seniors and families who are making gut-wrenching decisions in order to afford life-saving medications. That's why I'm taking the fight to Big Pharma and pushing to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. I have spoken with families who are struggling to keep up with skyrocketing gas prices. And that's why I'm leading efforts to suspend the gas tax to put more money back in your pockets. I'm pushing to end big oil's billions in tax breaks. Because you know what? It's the American people who deserve a tax cut, not big oil companies. Unlike my opponents, I know that a United States Senator is supposed to answer to the people who send her to Congress, not to Mitch McConnell and corporate special interests. If elected, my opponents would listen to Mitch McConnell, to Big Pharma, and Big Oil, not to Granite Staters. They won't listen to Granite Staters demanding lower prices for prescription drugs. Instead, they would do the bidding of Big Pharma. They won't listen to the New Hampshire families who want to bring down prices at the pump. Instead, they would take orders from Big Oil. And my opponents have made themselves very, very clear that they are not interested in listening to New Hampshire women. If elected, the Republican men running against me, and yes, they are all men, would vote to ban abortion and defund Planned Parenthood. In the world's greatest democracy, they would make women second-class citizens. We can't let that happen. And I promise you that as long as I am your senator, I will fight as hard as I can to protect the right of every woman to be a free and equal citizen in our democracy. And when I am fighting for Granite Staters, there is no one I would rather have at my side than all of you. Because winning tough races is what New Hampshire Democrats do best. Yeah, because as a former state senator, I know how important it is to have a party committed to winning up and down the ballot. And together, I know that that's exactly what we're going to do in November. Together, we're going to take back the State House and elect Tom Sherman so we can finally have a pro-choice governor. We are going to win the Executive Council so Cindy Warmington no longer has to hold the line all on her own. And I have a little message for New Hampshire Republicans. Annie Custer and Chris Pappas are not going anywhere. New Hampshire needs them, and I need them with me in Washington so together we can keep standing up for New Hampshire families. We have a tough fight ahead of us, but together it's one we can win. Because we are the live free or die state. We know that freedom is always worth fighting for. Together we'll stand up for our democracy, we'll fight for a woman's fundamental freedoms, and we will win in November. So now I have a really distinct honor to present the Spirit of Opportunity Award. Every step of the way through her time in public service, Alexis Simpson has embodied what is best about New Hampshire. Under her determined leadership, the Exeter Democrats flourished. I saw firsthand how she strengthened our party, helped win tough races, and get more Exeter Democrats involved in our political process. This is one of Alexis's greatest gifts. She has the ability to inspire others to live up to our Granite State values by getting off the sidelines and trying to make a difference for our communities. That's why she has been invaluable in her work as the vice chair of the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee. In that role, Alexis has continued to bring in more voices from the margins. She's elevated a new generation of Democratic leaders and already helped New Hampshire Democrats win a series of historic victories last year. And as a faith leader, Alexis has provided a powerful voice on behalf of New Hampshire women and has been on the front lines of the fight to protect a woman's freedom. We're lucky to have her continued advocacy and her leadership during this difficult moment for our state. For embodying Granite State values, for her fearless leadership, and for her tireless efforts to keep our democracy strong, I'm honored to present the Spirit of Opportunity Award to my friend, Alexis Simpson.
Thank you. I'm completely surprised and overwhelmed and grateful, and just want to share with you how excited and proud I am of all the candidates that we have running for the House. Over the last couple weeks, we've been able to meet them while we're recruiting at the last minute, and you all should be very, very proud of the people that will serve you come November in the House. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I don't know about you, but I am extremely excited this fall to cast my ballot for Congressman Pappas to send him back to the House and Maggie Hassan to send her to the Senate, and watch everybody in District 2 vote again to send Andy Custer back as well. What do you guys think? Now, as has been noted today, these are some of the people who fight for us here in New Hampshire, but there are so many more, and so many more who are stepping up to the plate to get in that fight and run a great campaign to hope to be able to do that for all of us here. And right now, our next speaker has been someone who's been a champion for working families right here in Manchester and across the state. In the state Senate, Kevin Kavanaugh was the voice for those who work hard every day to put food on the table for them and their loved ones. And next year, he will be their voice on the Executive Council. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Senator Kevin Kavanaugh.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Peter, for that great introduction. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome to Manchester, my hometown, and welcome to Memorial High School, where in 1984 I graduated from and was voted my first campaign Mr. Memorial, and I'm very proud of that. We have some other graduates here with us. June Trisciani. June, Alderman at Large in Manchester. We have Peter and Joyce already you know about. Marco Lacasse, business manager from Local 490. Marco, where are you? Oh well. So my name is Kevin Kavanaugh. I'm an alderman in Manchester, a state senator in District 16, and proudly your candidate for District 4 Executive Council this year. Now, Manchester has a great history. The Manchester Mills were built by the Irish, French, and Greek immigrants that came to this country for a better life. Our next speaker's parents did the same thing. They came to this country for a better life. He got a union job, and after years of working as a laborer, he decided to run for elected office to stand up for working families. When I was thinking about running for alderman in my first race, I was talking to my good friend Joyce Craig. I can't tell you what she said to the exact words, but I said, I'm not going to win. No one's going to vote for me. I'm a union guy. I'm just a working guy. And she said, that's garbage, Kevin. Look at the mayor of Boston. He's a union worker and always fighting for working people. For me personally, I've seen what this man has done. I've admired what he has done and is doing. He is an example for working people across the country. And when working people stand together, we cannot be beat. He is a former mayor of Boston, a lifelong champion for blue-collar workers, and a fighter for opportunity and dignity for all people. We are honored that he is able to join us today and talk to you about what is at stake this November. Please join me in giving a warm Granite State welcome to my union brother, the Honorable Marty Walsh.
sir. Welcome back. How are you? Thanks, everybody. How are you?
Hello, New Hampshire. Thank you very much. Senator, thank you very much for that introduction. You're awesome, and you're the best. So thank you very much, brother. It's good to be here with you today. I appreciate it. I'm kind of like starstruck a little bit because I've been to New Hampshire probably about, every 2 years, knocking doors, being given packets, go knock on this neighborhood and knock that neighborhood, and we did it all. I've done it for a long time. And when I was asked to come up and say a few words at the convention, I was like, this is big time. This is big time. I'm like, wow, what am I going to say? And I don't know if there's a young woman from one of the reporters in the room, and she asked me out in the question, are you running for president? I said, no, I'm not running for president. I'm coming up to speak to the delegates of the Democratic Convention. And it's really exciting to be here. So I want to say thank you. Thank you. And I'll be honest, in the past when I've come up here politicking, it's usually freezing. And I'm knocking doors in October with gloves on and boots on, and you get snow on the ground, everything else. So it's nice to be here today. Mr. Chairman, thank you. The members of the committee here, thank you for all that you do to keep this great party moving forward every day. I truly appreciate it. To all of you here today, thank you for all that you do. To the delegates, getting elected, coming to the convention, doing your civic duty, thank you very much for all that you've done. It's such an honor, as I mentioned earlier, to be here today. Kevin talked a little bit about my story. I just want to really quickly give my story. My story is like probably everyone in this room. My father came to this country in 1956 from Ireland. My mother came from Ireland in 1959. They met in Boston, Massachusetts. My father was able to join a union, Laborers Local 223 in Boston in 1956. Certainly the benefits that union members have today weren't the same in 1956. But that union gave my family a pathway into the middle class. That union allowed us the opportunity to my father and mother to buy a home. That union allowed to put food on the table for my brother, myself, my mother, and my father. That union allowed to have my father and my family to have health benefits. So at the age of 7, I was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma, a form of childhood cancer, and that union was able to help my family. And that union also, the membership rallied around my family to support my family through very difficult financial times. Fast forward, I joined that same union my father was part of, Laborers Local 223 in Boston. And years later, unbeknownst to me, I needed that union health benefit to be able to pay for my treatment for detox, for alcoholism. In the house that I grew up in, is much like all of you. My uncle and my father and my mother and my aunts, we would be talking about the importance of what the Democratic Party stands for, about fighting for good wages and good benefits, and fighting for good working conditions, and that's what we did in our house every single Sunday. My parents, my uncle and my father would talk about it. My uncle was the business manager of Laborers Local 223 in Boston. And we talked about the importance of being active in the political process. So at a very young age, I used to go hold signs. I didn't know who I was holding signs for, but I got the bug. I got the bug. And when I got that bug, as I got older, I got involved in politics myself. I started holding my own signs for my own people. And in 1997, I ran for state representative in Massachusetts, in my district, 13th Suffolk District. And I got elected to the House of Representatives in Massachusetts, where I spent 16 years as a state representative. 16 years fighting for working people, 16 years fighting for homelessness, 16 years for defending marriage equality, 16 years for fighting for rights for the LGBTQ community, making sure that we had all those different rights. And in 2013, I had the great honor and opportunity to run for mayor of the city of Boston. And I was able to get elected mayor of the city of Boston. And for 7 years as mayor, we were able to bring universal pre-kindergarten to the city of Boston. We were able to bring free community college to the city of Boston. We were able to improve development in the city of Boston. We were able to do a lot of things. So my entire career has been fighting for good jobs, access to health care, mental and physical health, making sure that we continue to open up a strong middle class for workers and union rights and organizing and things like that. And I say that to you in this room because a lot of you know who I am, or you might not have known who I was, but you probably figured out that was some of the stuff I did. Because that's what we're fighting for in November. When you think about where we are. I often hear the phrase, this is the most important election in our lifetime. We hear that every 4 years and every 2 years. Why? Because every 2 years and every 4 years, it is the most important election of our lifetime. That's why we do it. I want to take you to Washington for a minute. Because you read the paper, you watch the news, you hear the Twitter, you look at Facebook, wherever you're looking at, there's a lot of mixed messages. When President Biden took office, I want to take us back to a year and a half ago. There was no plan for vaccinations. There was no plan on how we're going to deal with COVID-19. There was no real plan, no plan. And those of you in this room that work for local, I was the mayor of Boston, we didn't have a plan how to deal with COVID in the beginning. We were on our own. There was no plan to reopen schools. There was no plan to reopen colleges. There was no plan to reopen work. There was no plan to get that moving forward. There was no plan to reopen our economy. There was no real plan to get people back to work. Companies were like, how are we going to get people back in the office? How are we going to get people back to work? There was no plan. The president and his administration and the Democrats in Congress had to start from scratch just a year and a half ago. Together, they brought the country back from one of the worst crises that our country's ever experienced. The American Rescue Plan. I was sitting as mayor of Boston when the American Rescue Plan passed. That American Rescue Plan allowed the president and the administration to get 220 million people fully vaccinated in our country. The American Rescue Plan, since the first day President Biden has taken office, has got 8.7 million Americans back to work, and it's the most under any presidency in the beginning in the history of our country. 8.7 million Americans are back to work. Our unemployment rate in the United States of America right now is 3.6%. No one thought that would be possible by now. The experts are saying we won't get there for a long time. In New Hampshire, in this state, your unemployment rate is 2.3%. 2.3%. I'm going to talk about that a little more. More businesses started in New Hampshire and in the country, new businesses last year than any other year in the history of our country, the United States of America. People said we're going to start our own businesses. So when you're talking about Democrats on pro-business, well, then why did 4.7 million people go out, 20% of those people of color go out and start new businesses? Because they're creating opportunities. The bipartisan infrastructure law that the president passed, bipartisan infrastructure law. The president came in and said we're going to work on both sides of the aisle because we need to on some issues. And he sat down and we got the largest bipartisan infrastructure law passed in the history of our country. That's going to rebuild our roads and bridges. It's going to bring broadband access, clean drinking water, electric charging stations, really thinking about the future of our country. There's also the Bipartisan Innovation Act to invest in domestic manufacturing that's going through the Senate right now that we need to make sure, the President's talking about bringing manufacturing back to America. The reason why I bring this up real quickly is that we in this room are fighting for middle-class jobs all day long, all the time. President Biden talks about the economy. He talks about the trickle-down economy. We all remember the trickle-down economy. It's going to start at the top, it's going to trickle down to all of us here, and it's going to trickle down all across America. Well, you know what? It didn't trickle anywhere. It didn't even drip down to us. It never came down. And the president was talking about how do we create an opportunity. I told you that story about my parents because we weren't rich and we weren't poor, but we were in the middle class. And the way we rebuild this economy is the democratic way, from the middle class out and the bottom up to allow families to get into the middle class. Our policies show it. What we say shows it. Our organizing shows it. That's what we have to do as Democrats. We have to make sure we continue to fight to give people opportunity to get into the middle class, because that is the American dream. Whether you were born here or not, how do we continue to move forward? That's what we need to do. And I want to say a couple of more words, because when I think about that, when I think about that as mayor of Boston, when I think about that as a state representative, when I think about that as a union member, I'm a proud union member. My union book's in my pocket. I'll never run away from that, because I'm proud to be a member of organized labor, because everything I have, the clothes on my back and my careers and everything I had, is because of the family I got born into and having an opportunity, because those numbers, 223, meant something for me in my house. And that meant something for me to create a pathway into the middle class. Now, I don't want to get too political here today, but I understand that there's, there's a couple of people, a couple organizations. One organization begins with a G and ends with a P, and there's an O in the middle. Are pumping a lot of money into attack ads in New Hampshire. And to be quite honest with you, I come home on the weekends. I'm down in Washington during the week. I live in Washington during the week, and I come home on the weekends, and I'm in the Boston market, the New Hampshire market, and I turn on the TV, and I see these commercials, and I watch them, and I laugh about them, because they're just not true. They're just not true. And I just want to take a minute. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I just want to take a minute. First of all, I love your Senator Maggie Hassan. I worked with Maggie when she was the governor here. I was up on election day, the day that Maggie won the state Senate race, the United States Senate race. I was in Boston. I was watching the results of the national results. I was disappointed on one side. If I was happy on the other side, I think it was 300 and something votes Maggie won by, and I was pretty excited about that. And I've had the chance to watch Maggie Hassan deliver, taking on big oil and big pharma, and making sure that she's bringing prices down for people in New Hampshire, whether it's seniors or people at the pump every single day, working every day. Front row seat, watch it. Delivering on access to high-speed internet. The Innovation Act, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, I should say, is going to bring high-speed internet to every community of New Hampshire. Every community. Communities that don't have it today. When kids were sent home for COVID-19 and people were sent home to work, they had to drive to a parking lot of a fast food restaurant to get Wi-Fi access. That's not the case. That won't be the case anymore in our country. Making sure, Maggie talks about surprise billing. I know she probably talked about it today and some other things. Senator Hassan is a leader in the United States Senate. Senator Hassan is an important part of the future of building that middle class we talk about that we want to continue to create. Congressman Pappas, I met Congressman Pappas before he was a congressman, knocking doors at one of the campaigns we were doing, working to stand up for small businesses. I talked about those small businesses, those 4.7 million people that went out, God bless you, that went out and created the small businesses in our country, making sure we have the support to help our small businesses, making our community safer, supporting men and women in uniform. Your congressman is a leader in the Congress, talking about these issues that are important and passing legislation that impacts everyday people from all the different cities and towns in New Hampshire, in the country, working to make sure that that works. Annie Custer, defending reproductive rights, combating climate change, investing in our infrastructure. When you think about it, if you watched the news last night, I watched the news last night, I was watching the weather, and they were talking about the number of states and cities in our town that's going to have triple digits of 100-degree weather. That's never happened before. We have to take climate change seriously. I know we're in New Hampshire. I know we have a lot of coastline here. We need to take it seriously. And Senator Shaheen, who has fought to deliver for New Hampshire year after year, is she's a national leader on healthcare, environment, and common sense gun legislation. We saw what's happening around the country. I bring this up to you today, brothers and sisters, because thank you. I want to thank this party, the New Hampshire Party, Democratic Party, for your federal delegation. Because your federal delegation is a snapshot, a microcosm of what we need to continue to keep in the United States Senate and the United States Congress. We need to continue to make sure we send great people there that have supports of issues that impact all of us. We might not all agree on every issue that we all support, but at the end of the day, it's a big tent. And the Democratic Party, the fundamental of our party, is to make sure that we continue to fight for our communities. The difference is, we as Democrats, we fight for everybody. It doesn't matter if you have a D or an R or an I, you're unenrolled or whatever it is, we fight for everybody. And I say that because when you're a party that fights to make sure that we're getting people into good paying jobs, we're a party that fights to make sure that we protect women's reproductive rights, we're a party that fights to make sure people have access to health care, we're a party that fights to make sure that people have opportunity when they retire, that they don't have to go on public assistance, they've worked 50 years, they don't have a pension. We're a party that fights to really create opportunity to make sure that the future of America is strong. I don't mean to put it on you, but you have an opportunity over the next 5 months. We have to continue to stay united. We need to continue to move forward. We need to do everything we can, not just here in New Hampshire, to send your delegation back, your entire delegation intact as it is today, but we need to make sure around the country that we send delegations around the country back to the United States House and the United States Senate, because there's so many important pieces of legislation and there's so much work to do. This country has gone through a lot in the last 6 years. From the pandemic, of a global pandemic, to a pandemic of a person sitting in the White House. You have, some people got that. All right, so I was sitting here with, I was supposed to round it up really excited. I'm not going to do that. I was sitting here with a task. Okay, so let me just read this task, because I've kind of jumped around again. So I'm asking everyone in this room today, sign up for volunteer shifts with Organized New Hampshire and the New Hampshire Democratic Party. I'm asking you to get 3 of your friends to sign up with you, and have 3 friends sign up as well, so we can do that. I truly believe, I don't care what the poll numbers say, we're Democrats. We're not going to be outworked. We're not going to be out-organized. We're not going to be out-passioned. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we win our race in November. We need you in this room to reach out and to do that. So brothers and sisters, let's make sure we continue to fight, because we're the party that believes in supporting working people. We're the party that actually believes in a middle class, that everyone has that opportunity to get a middle class. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. God bless you. God bless New Hampshire. And God bless the United States of America.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today in New Hampshire. We are so happy to have Marty Walsh back here to give that fantastic speech that he just gave. Isn't that right? And now, unfortunately, our basketball team here did suffer a tough loss this past week. But we as Democrats, that is the last time we are going to be losing, because we are charged up. And we are fired up, and we are onward to victory this fall. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Alderwoman Kelly to get us going here.
Thank you. These last few years, we've watched as Republican leaders have pushed our state to the right. Whether it's passing the Sununu abortion ban, cuts to public schools, defunding Planned Parenthood, or gerrymandering, Republican leaders in the House, Senate, Executive Council, and the governor's office have led our state down a dangerous path. The good news is the Democrats have brought the fight, standing up for our New Hampshire values. And this fall, we're going to take back the House, Senate, Executive Council, and the corner office, and bring real leadership back to Concord. I'm excited to hear from our next speaker, and talk about our outstanding Democratic leaders. So please welcome to the stage Chair of the Democratic Victory Campaign Committee, Representative Matt Wilhelm.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, New Hampshire Democrats. How we feeling? For those who don't know, the DVCC, you're going to hear about the DVCC as we go over the next few months. It's the newly reorganized and re-energized campaign operation for New Hampshire House Democrats, and it reflects a recommitment to our caucus's electoral work and a transformation into an increasingly professionalized and data-driven organization, laser-focused on flipping the New Hampshire House from red to blue in November. And let me tell you, the stakes could not be higher. And that is because House Republican Majority Leader Jason Osborne, who first moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project for the express purpose of taking over and dismantling state government, has since risen to the #2 leadership post in the State House. And in doing so, he has facilitated a radical takeover of the House Republican caucus that stands in stark contrast with the values that we hold as Granite Staters. Friends, this isn't my grandfather's Republican Party. Jason Osborne and House Republicans like to say that they're for liberty and freedom, but their voting record tells an entirely different story. They've restricted the freedom of our kids' hardworking teachers, restricting them from teaching our painful yet undeniable history of racism and sexism, and they've stood behind Commissioner Frank Edelblut and his allies. Commissioner Edelblut and his allies' bounty threats to make sure that teachers fall in line. House Republicans have also restricted the freedom of New Hampshire voters, restricting their right to free and fair elections by gerrymandering our maps so the partisan outcome is all but predetermined, and making it harder and more burdensome for Granite Staters to vote, including now requiring provisional ballots, signed into law just yesterday by Governor Sununu. And let's not forget restricting the freedom of medical patients to make deeply personal reproductive health care decisions under the consultation of their doctor. Instead, House Republicans have hijacked the state budget in order to insert government in that decision-making process, passing the first abortion ban in our state's modern history with no exceptions for rape, incest, or neonatal fatalities, and an ultrasound requirement. Jason Osborne and the House Republican caucus have been working overtime to chip away at our rights and our freedoms in order to exert control and power over Granite Staters. And I'm not sure about you, but that doesn't sound like liberty to me. And now that he's had a taste of power, we don't have to look any further than Jason Osborne's own Twitter account, which became public over the weekend following his totally bizarre WMUR interview with Adam Sexton, to whom Osborne referred to as Mr. Newsman. Did anyone see that? If you haven't seen the interview, you gotta watch it. If you want a preview of the type of policy ideas that Leader Osborne, or worse, Speaker Osborne, would pursue with a Republican House supermajority, then look no further than his Twitter feed. Filtering out the conspiracy theories and rape jokes, you'll find some pretty interesting, if not completely shocking, policy proposals. One of Osborne's most disconcerting tweets was published just last Saturday, in which he proposes as a quote, ready, common sense gun safety proposal, that New Hampshire school children receive annual in-school firearms trainings at every grade level. I'd be laughing too, but as a parent, it frightens me. So instead of expanding criminal background checks or closing the gun show loophole, which the vast majority of Granite Staters and House Democrats have worked hard to pass over the last couple of terms,
The House Majority Leader wants to put guns in the hands of our kids in our schools. So let's be clear, a vote for any House Republican this fall is a vote to fulfill Jason Osborne's dream of a veto-proof supermajority and an unchecked fringe right-wing extremist policy agenda at the State House, and we cannot let that happen. Now, with the start of the January 6th hearings, there's been a lot of talk about right-wing extremism on the national news. But there's a local element to all of this that should not be overlooked. I'm sure we all remember where we were on January 6th, 2021. My House colleagues and I were at our now infamous drive-in session at UNH. Republicans had just elected a new speaker, Sherm Packard, who gave a rather unprecedented, hyper-partisan speech, completely mischaracterizing Democrats' positions on a number of policy issues. And then over the course of the day, we began to read, hear, and watch the shocking reports out of D.C. about the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol and our democracy. A resolution condemning the violence was swiftly drafted and introduced, and then a roll call vote was taken. A small number of representatives voted against the resolution, against the condemnation of violence. The next day, when alerted to what one could only assume was a mistaken vote, a few reps chose to correct their votes with the House clerk so that the permanent record reflected that they were actually on the right side of history and against the violent insurrection. Yet when the House Journal was published, it was revealed that 30 House Republicans inexplicably voted against the peaceful transition of power and failed to make any correction. So now their vote, and what could only be interpreted as support for Trump's big lie and violence against Capitol Police, is now enshrined in the House Journal for the rest of time. Which is to say nothing of the 13 House Republicans who voted this spring in favor of secession from the United States. Look, these Republicans, they must be asked about their votes and whether their sworn oath to the constitutions of the United States and the state of New Hampshire means the same to us as it does to them. It's the pattern of right-wing anti-American behavior that I find so deeply concerning and completely out of step with our Granite State values, which is why they must be held accountable at the polls this November. Now, thankfully, we have an incredible slate of Democratic candidates that have courageously answered the call of their neighbors to step up and run for 390 House seats across the state. It's incredible. These diverse and inspiring leaders with deep roots in their communities have answered their neighbors' call to meet this moment, and we are so excited that they are launching their campaigns for state rep. Many of them are here today. If you are running for the House, please raise your hand or stand to be recognized. Give it up for them. They are incredible, courageous candidates stepping up in this moment for our democracy. Thank you for running. Other candidates are turning in virtually this morning, and I cannot wait for you to meet them, and I can't wait for you to knock on doors with them too. Democrats lost the House majority in 2020 by a total of just 754 votes across 14 races. That is an average of 50 votes per seat. A totally knockable field margin. That's how we won our string of 3 consecutive House special elections last year, including Representative Catherine Rombo's upset victory in Bedford. We won by knocking doors and made sure that voters knew exactly what's at stake. So from Nashua to Berlin, Hampton to Claremont, Conway, Laconia, Keene, and everywhere in between, we have to show up for our Democratic House candidates and fight for the values that we share as Granite Staters. We have to push back against the Republicans' defunding of public education and keep fighting for New Hampshire's tireless teachers and first-class public schools. We have to push back against Republicans' attacks on abortion access and keep fighting for an individual's right to make their own reproductive health care decisions. We have to push back against Republicans' tax breaks for wealthy, out-of-state corporations and against Republicans' property tax hikes. And we have to lift up the work of our federal delegations, Senator Shaheen and Hassan, Congressman Pappas, Congresswoman Custer, Democrats who have delivered critical American Rescue Plan investments to New Hampshire, despite Governor Sununu and State House Republicans taking credit for our economic recovery. We have to stand up for democracy and for decency. We have to stand up for workers' rights and women's rights and LGBTQ+ rights, stand up for science, for the environment, and for our clean energy future. Stand up for kids, our seniors, and our communities, because when we stand up, and more importantly, when we show up for one another and our values, we will send a message that is loud and clear, and that is that right-wing extremism is wrong for New Hampshire. Friends, Jason Osborne and House Republicans have proven that they simply cannot be trusted with our freedom. Just look at what they've done with abortion rights, free speech rights, and voting rights over the last 2 years. They are executing an extreme ideological agenda in Concord, which has left our state unrecognizable to those of us who grew up here. We need you in this fight with us, so I look forward to seeing you out on the doors as we knock our way to victory and to a Democratic House majority in November. Thank you so much for your commitment. We can do this. Thank you. And friends, it is now my pleasure to introduce the leader of the State Senate Democratic Caucus, Donna Soucy.
Party started. All right, thank you. Good morning, New Hampshire Democrats. Say good morning. Come on, let's feel the energy. Welcome to Senate District 18. Today, it all begins. Today, we reclaim our majorities in the legislature, and today, we bring back sanity, civility, and respect to the people of the state of New Hampshire. You know, it's a relief to be out of the legislative session because, boy, the last 5 months have really told you what the Republican Party is about. There is no question. They can't even agree amongst themselves. They're busy fighting with themselves. They're busy attacking their own governor. And that's going to give us the opportunity to seize the day and reclaim the majority in the legislature. You know, some days it's really hard to sit back and watch some of the crazy things the Republicans have done. And, you know, the House doesn't have the exclusive. The Senate's right there with them, let me tell you. They wasted thousands of taxpayer dollars trying to gerrymander legislative districts, congressional districts, executive council districts, all because they're truly bankrupt of ideas, and it was the only mechanism they could use to try to gain a favorable advantage. Well, it isn't going to work, let me tell you. They've also rejected any of our proposals to provide meaningful property tax relief at a time when so many New Hampshire families are suffering. They created a voucher system for education that siphons money out of public education, and they have disrespected the hardworking teachers here in the state of New Hampshire. And the Republicans have attacked women's rights. There's no question. The Republicans are wrong on abortion, despite the fact we repeatedly gave them the opportunity to do the right thing, to vote to codify Roe versus Wade. The Republicans simply said no. Well, let me tell you, if you want a state Senate that recognizes the challenges of New Hampshire families, if you want to ensure that people can earn fair wages, that they have access to child care, and that they have the right to organize and collectively bargain here in the state of New Hampshire, you need a new Senate majority. If you want a legislature or a state Senate that values public education and wants to fund it and values the work of our hardworking teachers, then you need a new Senate majority. And if you know, as I do, and people around the Granite State know,
that women should make their own decisions about their own health care and should have access to safe, legal abortion, then you need a new Senate. You need a Senate majority, and we're going to make that happen. And let me show you exactly how we're going to make that happen. We have extraordinary candidates from the top of the state to the very bottom bordering Massachusetts. And let me show you some of them here today. From District 1, we have Representative Edith Tucker. From District 2, Honorable Kate Miller. From District 3, Representative Bill Marsh. District 4, our own Senator David Waters. District 5, Senator Sue Prentice. Stepping up in District 6, Ruth Larson. District 7, Richard Lobbin. In District 8, Honorable Charlene Lovett. In District 9, Matt McLaughlin. In District 10, Representative Donovan Fenton and Councilor Bobby Williams. District 11, Senator Shannon Chanley is coming back. District 12, Senator Melanie LeVake. District 13, Senator Cindy Rosenwald. District 14, the Honorable John Robinson. District 15, Hopkinton's own Senator Becky Whitley. District 17, Christine Tappan. And District 18, you got me? District 20, Senator Lou D'Alessandro. District 21, Senator Rebecca Perkins Quokka. District 22, Wayne Hobner. District 23, Brenda Aldack. And District 24, Representative Deb Altshuler. This is what a majority looks like. This is what the people of the state of New Hampshire deserve. This is what, with your help, we're going to bring to Concord this November. All right, can you feel it? Can you feel the excitement? This is what you can have in the state Senate. With your hard work and with all of us working together, we are going to have the majority in the state Senate. But we also need one more majority. A really dear friend of mine has been doing yeoman's work. She's been on her own, bringing the issues to the Executive Council day after day, holding them accountable, pushing back, fighting the governor, and she's delivering from New Hampshire. And we're going to give her some folks to help her out. Proud to introduce my dear friend, Executive Councilor Cindy Warmington.
Good morning. It's still morning. So wonderful to be here and to see all of you, and thank you for that wonderful welcome. So I'm here to talk about the Executive Council Campaign Committee. But first, what is the Executive Council? It's the question that everyone who runs for this office or serves in this office has to answer most frequently. And the answer is, it's this 5-member body that's intended to be a check on the governor. It reviews state contracts, it reviews nominations, and on and on. But really, to understand the Executive Council, you have to look at its impact on the people of our state. So currently, I serve as the lone Democrat on the Executive Council, and since taking office, this Republican Executive Council has made some pretty terrible votes.
like approving an anti-abortion activist Gordon MacDonald to lead our Supreme Court, approving the appointment of Frank Edelblut, who is determined to dismantle our public schools, approving a commissioner of energy who doesn't believe government has a role in addressing climate change, rejecting $27 million in vaccine funding, and defunding Planned Parenthood. The list goes on. I'm pushing back, working hard from a 4-1 minority, but the bottom line is we simply must take control of the Executive Council. And that's why we must. That's why I've been working hard to build a majority since I was elected. I formed the Executive Council Campaign Committee, and its sole purpose is to take back the majority. We have been hiring staff, raising money, executing a communications plan to raise awareness about the Executive Council, and recruiting and supporting candidates. If you don't know, we have a district director, Donnie Spencer. We have give it up for Donnie. A deputy director in Spencer Meyer. That's Spencer times 2. Terry Norelli is our treasurer, and my husband, Bill Christie, is the chair. And I tell you, we are so excited. This has never been done before for the Executive Council, and we are so excited about it. And today, I am proud to introduce you to the candidates who, come January, will replace the 4 Republicans on the Executive Council. In District 1, which includes cities and towns from Dover and Somersworth all the way to the Canadian border, please welcome the Mayor of Somersworth, Dana Hilliard. Dana? Where's Dana? Dana Hilliard? Dana is a 5-term mayor of the city of Somersworth, a lifelong educator and school administrator. He's served 5 times in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, 4 times on the Somersworth City Council, and he is going to be a great executive counselor. In District 3, Rockingham County, please welcome Catherine Haraki. Catherine is chair of the Hampton Budget Committee. She was born and raised in Hampton and has career experience in international business and diplomacy, and we are so lucky to have her to run against Janet Stevens in District 3. She is going to be great. Catherine. In District 4, Manchester and surrounding towns, we have Senator Kevin Kavanaugh. Kevin is a 3rd-term state senator from District 16, an alderman in Manchester Ward 1, a retired union worker, and an IBEW member. Thank you, Kevin. Let me just say, it's time to get rid of Ted Gatsas. In District 5, Nashua and surrounding communities, please give a big hand. Big hand for Shoshana Kelly, our co-chair today. Shoshana is a mom, a business owner, an alderwoman at large in the city of Nashua. She's now running to be the first person of color ever elected to the New Hampshire Executive Council. am so proud to stand with this slate of candidates. It is a diverse slate with 3 women, 1 LGBTQ person, 1 person of color, 1 young Democrat, and 2 lefties. What an amazing slate of candidates who are going to make an incredible executive council. And let me ask you, what would you pay to see these candidates sitting at the executive council table come January? No, really, not a hypothetical question. We're on ACTBLUE, ex-Executive Council Campaign Committee. Please help them in any way you can. Please support the Executive Council Campaign Committee. We can turn the Executive Council table blue with your help. Thank you all. Thank you, and now it is my pleasure to introduce to you a leader we can trust to get New Hampshire back on track, the next governor of New Hampshire, Dr. Tom Sherman.
Thank you all so much. Well, how does it feel, New Hampshire Democrats? Is this not an awesome slate? Executive Council, the Senate, the House, we have such incredible leadership here. You know, I've spent my whole career helping people. And that was a great segue into the legislature. It was a great place to take the skill of being able to listen and being able to hear the people of New Hampshire. That's how we legislate. That's how we solve problems. And that's how, working with colleagues both here and across the aisle, we addressed Medicaid expansion. We brought down prescription drug costs. We protected our firefighters and clean water from chemicals, the forever chemicals. That's how we get things done. And in 2019, we came together when we had the majority in the House and the Senate and the Executive Council, and we did so many great things. All of us together. But there was a problem. Does anybody know what that problem was? I can't hear you. Exactly. So where does he need to go? Exactly. As I go around the state, I actually do that listening, and it's been great. I've been up to the North Country. I'm like the ever-ready bunny. I go everywhere. It's so much fun. But people are concerned. People are concerned about rising property taxes and housing costs. Families are worried they can't afford to stay in their own home, homes that have been in their families for generations. And their kids, you know, this is a New Hampshire tradition. The kids come back. The grandchildren come back, but there's no place for them to live. I was in Jaffrey, and I was talking to a woman who was afraid her children couldn't afford the property taxes of the house that she would love to give to them. These are real problems, and they are problems that Granite Staters are facing. And businesses can't find workers. We're up in Lancaster. These are really great jobs that are available. Camp program director, no housing, no program director. Childcare. We have so many children waiting for childcare. And as Jean Shaheen just told you, the governor's sitting on $29 million of funding that they gave him for specifically that purpose. And finally, the anger and the vitriol that we see coming out of this Republican legislator and out of this governor's office. It's nasty. But we showed them in March that we're above that. We showed them in March that we can get beyond the anger and vitriol, and we can elect sound leadership across the state in our town elections, in our municipal elections. And that's exactly what we're going to do in November. Because Sununu's response for all of the problems that he now has is to blame Washington. I think he forgets that he's actually governor, and he can actually do something about it. I've come to call him the crisis governor. Have you noticed this? Everything that happens in the state of New Hampshire seems to be at a crisis level, and it is. He's making crises, and he's let crises fester. Think of it. Mental health. 51 children in our ERs a year and a half ago. Is it much better now? No. Mental health for adults. ER boarding problem. It's still going on, folks. These are problems that Democrats can address and solve. We know we can do it. Others, he's actually caused. He's taken the state so far off track. Since when, in the Live Free or Die state, have we told women we don't trust them to make their own health care decisions? He owns the abortion ban. It's his. I tell you, and where is Cindy Rosenwald? Cindy Rosenwald and I, there she is, I knew you were up here. All of us, the senators, we're all sitting there just awestruck by the audacity of the Senate to tell women we don't trust them. And then the governor signs the bill, the budget. He says, oh, I can't veto a budget. I think he has short-term memory loss. He vetoed a budget in 2019 that, by the way, not only had more than $130 million more for education in it, but it also had $40 million in direct relief for property taxes. He vetoed that. Never let him forget that. But he didn't stop at this cruel infringement on the rights of women. He attacked our children. He said, your children's teachers, we're going to make them the enemy. We're going to create a voucher program that is one of the most expensive in the country, especially now that it's gone so far over budget. And we're going to give taxpayer dollars away with no accountability. This is our governors doing this. And finally, he took away even more money from our public schools. We can't afford this governor for another 2 years. If anybody wants to know what would happen with another 2 years of Sununu, just look at the last 6 years. He's got to go. And when he does go, when we send him packing, we will see a new New Hampshire. We will see a New Hampshire that gets back to our values, gets back to our communities, recognizes that our children and their public schools are so important, and that the teachers are our partners, not the enemy. He talks about the economy, but imagine where the economy will be when we get all those kids waiting for childcare, and their parents get back to work, because that's where they want to be. Imagine where our economy will be. But we have to do this together. We are going to spend this summer knocking doors, shaking hands, traveling across the state, listening to people like only Democrats can do. And in November, we're going to win up and down the ballot. Together, we're going to take back the House. Together, we're going to take back the Senate. Together, we're going to take back the Executive Council, and together, we're going to put Governor Tom Sherman in the corner office. Let's go! Thank you. Thank you. And today with us, we have a real-life, wonderful example of somebody who has shown us the way. I am so honored to introduce a governor who's actually listened to the women in his state. Actually listened to the women in his state. We were talking about our wives. We know who's the boss. He's taken action to stand up for their right to make their own health care decisions. Governor J.B. Pritzker knew that women's rights have been under attack across this country, and he took action years ago to put into law that women have the right to an abortion. He made sure that even if Roe versus Wade is overturned, the rights of women in Illinois will stay protected. That protection does not currently exist in New Hampshire, and it's an example of why we need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot and in the governor's office, because we need Democrats to lead, to make sure that women's rights are protected. We need to make sure that we will continue to make, as Democrats, thoughtful and strategic steps to move the state forward. So it is my deep honor to introduce Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much to Tom. As an Illinoisan, I'm excited to see we have a Northwestern University graduate running for governor of this great state. Tom will be a great governor and a compassionate leader who will restore a woman's right to choose and fight like hell for working families. Well, hello, New Hampshire Democrats. I'm so happy to be in a state like Illinois where hard winters produce strong Democrats. Sun is for the weak, after all. Survive a polar vortex under 2 feet of snow, and then you're ready to jump into American politics. I'm thrilled to be here today in a state of notable firsts. After all, New Hampshire was the first colony to declare independence. You were the first state to send an American into space. The first potato planted in America was here in New Hampshire, for which every one of our Illinoisans thanks you. But my favorite New Hampshire first is that you're the first and only state to elect 2 different women to be governor and then senator, and both are Democrats. It gives new validity to your old slogan, always first, always right. And these are 2 strong women. Vladimir Putin is so scared of Jean Shaheen, he banned her from Russia. And Maggie Hassan frightened Chris Sununu so badly, he cowered right back to the governor's mansion. Well, he won't be there very much longer. And speaking of Chris Sununu, I heard that he once described himself as a Trump guy through and through, which might explain why he's so scared of strong, pro-choice Democratic women. But I don't blame Governor Sununu. I wouldn't want to run against Maggie Hassan either. She's a powerhouse, saving the Affordable Care Act from Republicans hell-bent on destroying it. She's fighting for a federal gas tax holiday, and against a field of 11 anti-choice bros, she's a loud and proud supporter of women's reproductive rights. And we need to send Annie Custer and Chris Pappas back to Congress. Folks, in the history of the United States, it has never been more important to elect Democratic governors and Democratic members of the House and Senate. I first ran for governor of Illinois in 2018. The state was facing unprecedented challenges because we had a Republican governor who decided to hold the state budget hostage. Things in Illinois government were a mess. My friends thought I was crazy to run for governor. They told me state government couldn't be repaired. And anyway, who would vote for someone like me? Look, I'm a Ukrainian American, Jewish. Oh, I haven't finished the list yet, and it gets worse from here. A Ukrainian American Jewish Democratic billionaire businessman. That's not exactly the archetype the party was looking for to run for governor. But that's okay with me. I know who I am and where I come from. My great-grandfather arrived in Chicago a refugee without a penny to his name. When the Russians were killing Jews in Ukraine, a refugee assistance organization gave him a ticket on a ship bound for America and sent him to Chicago. They found him a place to live, and he got a free public school education. His grandson, my father, became a naval officer, a crypto analyst decoding Russian submarine transmissions during the Cold War in the 50s. And he went on to start a successful motel and hotel company. He was a Democrat through and through. My mother was an elected Democratic Party leader and an activist for reproductive rights, for LGBTQ rights, for economic and social justice, for societal change that 50 years ago was ahead of its time. Look, I've been lucky in life, and I know it, and that's why I've worked hard. After law school, I founded my own successful business. I also became a national leader and a national advocate for early childhood education. I co-founded a Holocaust museum, started the world's #1 small business incubator, chaired the Illinois Human Rights Commission, and helped elect Democrats for more than 30 years. The democratic values that my parents instilled in me about being on the front lines in the fight for human and civil rights and giving voice to the voiceless, about lifting up working families and those who've been left out and left behind, those are the values that led me to run for governor. My slogan when I ran for that campaign was "Think Big." And yes, it was a pun on my size. But it was also an expression of what I believe. Small-mindedness only produces small results. I believe in being bold and setting goals that seem improbable but are attainable if you provide a vision and then inspire others to join in the endeavor. I believe in our democratic values and our ability to deliver. So I promised big things. I said I'd raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I said I'd pass a record-setting infrastructure bill, that I'd enact comprehensive nation-leading laws to fight climate change. and I said I would enshrine reproductive rights into Illinois law. And you know what? We accomplished all of those things. I protected our elections and expanded voting rights, reformed our criminal justice system, and balanced the budget. Oh, and I legalized cannabis with the most equity-centric legislation in the country. Now, I couldn't have done that without the help of a Democratic legislature willing to vote for big change. And I haven't yet accomplished everything on my list, but I'll never let the fear of failure stop me from trying. Because you know you can't get what you don't try for. I finished my first year in office a little bit tired, but with historic victories in hand and optimistic about achieving success and even more big things on our Democratic agenda. And then March of 2020 and a global pandemic came. I gave the first of 82 consecutive daily press conferences on March 9th that year. I remember how I finished my remarks on the first day. I warned the citizens of Illinois, this is going to affect your daily lives. Every hour of that terribly long first 2 months of the pandemic was dedicated to one emergency after another and a frantic search for more PPE and ventilators. I needed to literally find a way for the citizens of my state to breathe safely. So I did something that I never thought I would do. I called Donald Trump and I complimented him. And then I pleaded for help. Let me be clear, I loathe Donald Trump. Every stump speech I delivered in my 2018 campaign began with, everything we care about is under siege by a racist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic president. And I know I wasn't exactly subtle. On March 23rd of 2020, though, I knew I needed to swallow my pride and lean on that man's ego. I sat at my desk and I wrote myself a script because I generally wear my heart on my sleeve, so there was every likelihood that I might blurt out narcissist or bigot while I was making my request. So I needed to write it down. And then I asked myself to get President Trump on the phone. I asked my staff. He got on the call, and I said, like you, Mr. President, I'm a former businessman, I told him. I normally don't like government interfering with the commercial market, but with regard to ventilators and PPE, if you could invoke the Defense Production Act, it would stop the price gouging and put some order in the market. I told him, if you have the power now to save lives, you need to do it by controlling the distribution of these goods, and we need your help. And then, and forgive me, I promised I'd say nice things about him on Twitter if he sent me ventilators and PPE. So Trump told me he'd get back to me. And a few hours later, Peter Navarro, yes, that corrupt, recently indicted Peter Navarro, called me and he promised that everything would arrive soon. How soon, I asked. He said, in Trump time. Spoiler alert, Trump time, as it turns out, is kind of like Infrastructure Week in that it didn't arrive until President Biden was elected. When Trump decided that it would be better for his reelection if he politicized the pandemic, we had to refute his attacks on science, endure threats against our homes and our families, and an unending Republican stream of misinformation meant to weaken our resolve. We grieved the dead. We mourned with the living. We yearned for a White House that would have our backs. In Illinois, we danced in the streets when President Biden was elected and Democrats won the Senate. And they delivered on so many promises to bring much-needed aid to families and small businesses and cities and states. You know what Republican elected officials in my state did before and during the pandemic? You're going too fast, they said. People aren't ready for this. You're doing too many things at once. They said they wanted to stop mitigations and deliberate about the pandemic. They celebrated any setback. They diminished every victory. They made it harder every day to help working families and those who rely on government services to make ends meet. They tried to distract from solving actual problems by yelling about fake ones. They were enraged because I told voters I would do big things, and then I got those big things done. One truism in politics is no one ever voted anyone into office to think small, to go slow, or to act indecisively. And Republicans know this, but their game plan is to convince us, their opposition, that the most obvious of our political instincts are wrong. And unfortunately, it's a game plan that's been working. In 2022, we are living in an entirely new world, and politics does not handle new very well. Politicians in general like to reach to the past when they're trying to navigate forward, but our view of the past is a stone at the bottom of a river, all of its rough edges and scars smoothed over and evened out by time and pressure. That sometimes leads to dangerous nostalgia. Republicans know that we can't live in the old world anymore, but they have some Democrats convinced that our party shouldn't try to embrace a new one. That's dumb, and it's dangerous. These past few years, they've been so hard. And I feel it's important that we say that. It's hard to manage your family through the pandemic, a pandemic that's still lingering. It's hard to pay a grocery bill. It's hard to take a vacation or afford gas. It's hard to find an affordable apartment. It's almost impossible to buy a house. And it's hard to find baby formula and now tampons. It's hard to schedule a doctor's appointment without a several-month wait. It's hard to find a used car or purchase a sofa that will arrive before your toddler leaves for college. Life is hard right now, especially for those who have traditionally been marginalized. And we don't do ourselves any favors by pretending it's not. The Republican game plan is to get each of us to feel alone in a struggle we're all facing together. The Republican game plan is to blame the hardships imposed by a deadly global pandemic on those who were following facts and science. They want to cast obvious solutions to everyday problems as something exotic or woke. They're hoping, as the old story goes, that no one is willing to say that their emperor has no clothes. Well, New Hampshire, I'm here to tell you the GOP is naked and afraid. They're afraid of workers' rights to organize and bargain. They're afraid of a population unburdened from student debt. They're afraid of an approach to fighting inflation that prioritizes making critical goods right here at home and holding bad actors accountable for driving up prices. They're afraid of fiscal policy that says that the highest income earners, like me, should pay the highest tax rates. They're afraid to unshackle the poor because it goes against their belief that they somehow deserve to live in poverty. They're afraid of a Democratic agenda that prioritizes building wealth in black and brown communities, in communities that have been left out and left behind. They're afraid when Democrats say plainly that you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you never had any boots. Republicans are afraid the nation will see their old world ideas for what they are and instead will embrace the new world for what it can be. And by God, they are afraid of the world women have built for themselves. Birth control, fertility treatments, the morning after pill, and safe access to abortion, these things have allowed women to decide how and when and if they'd like to start a family. It enabled women to marry who they want to, when they want to make choices about their careers and education and financial stability and happiness. It gave women who desperately wanted children the chance to actually have them without being subject to the whims of genetics or fate. Raise your hand if you know someone or love someone or are someone whose life was changed by the entire rainbow of reproductive choice. Well, that's the era of empowerment that Roe v. Wade ushered in. Women in this country didn't have real autonomy until they had the legal right to control their own bodies. That absolutely terrifies Republican politicians. They've spent literally half a century trying to make us think that abortion is not something that should be available to everyday women. The right wing has actually made the word abortion verboten to say. They're trying to take it out of the political lexicon because when you make a word shameful, you make the people associated with that word shameful as well. It was purposeful and it was diabolical. It meant Democratic politicians have spent decades trying to figure out how to talk about women's reproductive health without actually talking about abortion. It allowed the far right to advance breathtakingly sinister policies. It enabled this very moment that we find ourselves in, days away from a Supreme Court decision that will allow laws that criminalize abortion, laws that will put women and their doctors in jail for a medical procedure. They don't even make an allowance for cases of rape or incest or the health and life of the mother. Illinois' Democratic women legislators were never fooled by the GOP's sleight of hand. For the last 5 years, they have worked to advance and pass legislation taking trigger laws off the books and making sure that even though we are surrounded by states working to criminalize abortion, Illinois would remain fiercely pro-choice. And I've been very proud to be their ally and to work alongside them every step of the way because men need to show up for this fight. All of us need to be every bit as focused and purposeful in guaranteeing the right to choose as the radical Republican right has been in trying to take it away. In Illinois, we trust women. In New Hampshire, you trust women so much you've elected them to literally every office in the state. We together need to fight for a country that shares our pro-women, pro-choice democratic values. The Republican Party is so afraid of the power and influence women have achieved in our society that they're seeking to shame and criminalize your very autonomy. And they're playing the very same game with guns. For a full year, Republicans have been screaming about crime. They particularly like to target my home city of Chicago. Just for the record, Chicago should be no one's punching bag. It's a beautiful city that boasts glorious summer festivals, the very best cultural institutions, entertainment and food, and the kindest and most amazing people you will ever meet. It's the birthplace of gospel music and the Blues Brothers. It's where Barack Obama is from. We're a diverse and compelling place with a proud history, and we're hoping to host you all in Chicago for the 2024 Democratic National Convention. So just like it is in every major city and state around the country right now, crime is a problem in Illinois. Republicans are hell-bent on making you believe that the solutions are simple. They begin and end with veiled rhetoric that points at black and brown people, and then they scream, "Lock them up." Reducing crime, though, starts with real investments in proven violence interruption programs, youth employment, funding for mental health and substance use treatment, and providing law enforcement with the resources they need to solve crimes. But make no mistake, dealing with crime also involves getting guns off the streets. And man, oh man, is the GOP afraid we're going to start saying that more loudly and more purposefully than we have in the past. Illinois has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Our people and our politicians are willing to do a lot to get the weapons of war off our streets. Just last month, I signed a bill banning ghost guns, which are untraceable firearms that can be bought online. And Illinois was the first state in the Midwest to do this. But do you know where nearly 60% of the guns that are recovered in Chicago are from? Out of state. Out of state. We're doing everything we can to get guns out of the hands of criminals in Illinois, but because of the Republican politicians, those efforts often feel like pushing back the tide with a broom. We lost 19 children last month in Uvalde, Texas. 19, 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. We lost 2 teachers who laid down their lives for their students. All because a murderer waited until his 18th birthday when it would be legal in Texas for him to purchase an AR-15. The same weapon that has been used in almost every mass shooting in the United States because of its unrivaled capacity to kill dozens of people in such a short amount of time. We've lost so many children to gun violence. Whether it's a horrific mass shooting in Texas or a stray bullet in Chicago. And here is where the Republican game plan is the most audacious. They want to distract you into believing that gay marriage, black history, Disney World, and library books are more of a threat to our children than an AR-15. And if we can't call bullshit on that, well then Democrats, we don't deserve to win elections. Do not tell us that a 10-year-old is too young to learn about the history of slavery, but not too young to run active shooter drills and learn how to play dead if a gunman shoots up the school. Do not claim to support parents' rights until you're willing to protect the right of our children to live. Do not lecture us about crime until you're willing to do something about guns. And do not tell us that you are pro-life, because no part of the Republican agenda is about life. Because if it was about life, health insurance would cover every last cent of giving birth. And child care would be free. Because if it was about life, we'd have the best family and medical leave policies in the entire developed world instead of the worst. Because if it was about life, refugee children coming here to escape violence would be embraced instead of incarcerated. Because if it was about life, wearing a mask would be no big deal and getting vaccinated would be sacrosanct. Because if it was about life, there would be a bunch of kids from Sandy Hook Elementary School graduating from high school this year. Republicans aren't the live free or die party. Republicans are the live how I want you to live, and that may lead to you dying party. And they're counting on us to be so numb to it all that we will just give up. Our majority isn't silent, it's exhausted. And I'm worried that people won't wake up if someone doesn't start yelling. I'm done with Democrats pretending that we can find political success in a watered-down mishmash of policies that neither offend nor enlighten but merely satisfy. I don't want platitudes to replace passion or cowardice to replace candor anymore. I want to keep the promises that were made to people who elected us. I want the LGBTQ community to know that we're not going to let them be forced back into the closet. I want our black and brown citizens to feel like they can count on us in a fight. I want them to know that their priorities, their welfare, their safety doesn't ride on the whims of the electoral cycle, that we will do what we said we would do, that we won't back down because some GOP ad maker figured out how to spin a melody out of a dog whistle. I want the truth to be self-evident that the equality of women finally will be unalienable, that her liberty to pursue happiness is guaranteed. Ours is the real patriotism for free and fair elections, for a system that makes it easier to vote, not harder, for politicians who honor the nation George Washington founded, that Abraham Lincoln preserved, and that Martin Luther King battled for the soul of. We stand with the people who barred the doors at the Capitol on January 6th, not the ones who are trying to knock them down. Democrats, let's not be scared of who we are. Let's stand up for who we are. I want to fight for who we are. The challenges that I faced as governor the last few years have brought an unusual clarity to my thinking that I can't quite escape. There was a point in March of 2020 when a member of my staff went to the whiteboard in my office and she drew two bubbles. One said, more people die. The other said, less people die. That was the simplest and most effective decision tree for everything that we did during those first terrible months of COVID. We looked at that board and asked ourselves, would the choice we were making right then lead to more or fewer people dying? Because in the end, nothing else mattered. And it's why I was willing to put aside partisanship and personal rancor to call Donald Trump that long ago March day. In a world full of uncertainty, it's why I'm constantly asking myself whether my decisions are bold enough and my thinking big enough to improve the lives of the people that I represent. It's how I've come to value two things that we don't talk enough about in politics: courage and kindness. You know, we've been led to believe that real courage is flashy, that it walks onto stage and tells us it's there and has grand gestures and big headlines. But that's not real courage. Real courage is persistence in the face of endless struggle, where victory feels nearly impossible. Real courage is seen in the nurses and the doctors and the healthcare workers who spent every day of the last few years holed up in hospitals, praying for cures and common sense, hoping that maybe this surge would be the last. We expect courage to be rewarded with some sort of happy ending. But what happens when life demands courage endlessly for victories that are never large and a struggle that is never over? That's where courage meets kindness. True kindness will always help you find real courage. And if you are wondering if kindness can lead to electoral success, well, then I give you the example of President Biden. In 2020, Joe Biden met rancor with empathy. He showed that an outstretched hand can have more power than a clenched fist. He beat a bully with an appeal to our best selves. We shouldn't let ourselves forget that. In 2018, I used to end every campaign speech with one question: are you ready for the fight? It was my favorite because the response was what you would expect: a loud and boisterous yes from a room full of energized voters. In 2022, it takes more courage to answer yes to that question, because it feels like the things that we care most about, the institutions that define us and protect us, are in more peril than ever. It feels like the solutions that we've always turned to are less effective than they've ever been. Everything we care about is under siege, and we are all challenged to answer about whether we have the stamina, the endurance, the courage, and the kindness to meet this moment. The forces aligned against us want us to think that we don't. It's a psychological game. They want us tired and dispirited and believing that we are powerless to change the course of democracy. They want us to feel hopeless, because hopeless people don't fight. I've earned a reputation back in Illinois as a somewhat irrepressible optimist. And let me tell you, it drives the Republican politicians in my state insane. They seem to take it personally that I don't endlessly badmouth Illinois and the country. It's not that I don't see or care about our common problems and struggles. I do, and I work to address them every day. But I believe to my very core that if you want to save your home, you have to love it first. You have to love its good things and resolve to change its bad things. You have to love its past with all its warts. You have to love its future with all its worries. And you have to use all your courage and all your kindness to keep that love alive and maintain your resolve during our darkest days. Why? Because we fight for the things that we love. So New Hampshire, before I go, I have to ask you one question. Are you ready for the fight? Are you ready for the fight, New Hampshire? Are you ready to fight with Jeanne Shaheen for Tom Sherman and Maggie Hassan? Are you ready to fight for Annie Custer and Chris Pappas? Are you ready to fight for this great state and this wonderful country? Then let's get out there and fight for our country with the courage and the kindness to save it. Thank you. May God bless you, and may God bless this great nation of ours.
I didn't expect that. Wow. I opened it to Bill Christie. I didn't know if that was next.
That's correct. Yep.
No.
All right. All righty, wasn't that a wonderful speech? And thank you to Governor Pritzker for being here today to give those kind remarks. I mean, isn't it truly refreshing to have a governor who understands his people and is willing to work hard for them, and as he said, to go big and bold to support what is going to help the working people of his state? And next up today, I would like to introduce our parliamentarian, Bill Christie, as he reads the Rules Committee report.
Well, I get to follow that by explaining the rules to you all, so I'm sure that's quite a transition. I'm Bill Christie. I'm legal counsel to the New Hampshire Democratic Party. I'm also on the Rules Committee, along with Gene Martin, our chairman, who couldn't be here today, Ryan Mahoney, Liz McConnell, Mindy Mesmer, Tim Smith, and Jackie Weatherspoon. Due to the continued concerns about COVID-19, we drafted rules this year that reflected and respected everyone's comfort levels and ability to be here with us today. That's why, with unanimous consent of the New Hampshire Democratic Party Executive Committee, the quorum shall be 25% of convention delegates considered present. Delegate voting on the adoption of the proposed rules for the 2022 convention shall be considered present, allowing us to hold a convention with people in present here and people participating by voting and everyone being counted. The NHDP state delegates will be voting remotely, allowing for in-person attendance and not to be a barrier for participation. This year, the delegates were asked to vote to approve the rules of the convention, the proposed NHDP platform, and any resolutions for 2022. Quorum will be determined by the total number of delegates voting on the adoption of the proposed rules that can be found in your convention book. Voting for the 2022 convention began on June 8th and will conclude on June 21st at 5 p.m. Voting opened at the call of the convention that was sent out 10 days prior to the convention according to the NHDP Constitution. Only ballots received during the voting period will be counted. Paper ballots must be returned to the office by June 21st at 5 p.m. and no proxy voting is permitted for this convention. If you have any questions on how to vote or to drop off your completed ballot, please visit the convention voting booth that is located out there in the hall. And thank you, New Hampshire Democrats, for attending this wonderful convention. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about what tomorrow is. It's a special day for Granite Staters and for African Americans across this country. Juneteenth marks the first day in 1865 that the last people in the South were freed from slavery. This is a day for us to honor those who have fought so hard for equal rights in our country and to celebrate the contributions of African Americans. Juneteenth passed as a federal holiday just last year. Just last year. And in the words of my friend Lizzo, I'd like to say about damn time. Here to mark Juneteenth is former and future Senator Melanie LeVake.
Hello, everyone. Happy Juneteenth. On June 19th, 1865, General Granger and the Union Army rode into Galveston, Texas, and officially proclaimed that the nearly 250,000 remaining enslaved people were free. While it took nearly 3 years to reach Texas, the delay was due in part to willful omission in sharing the proclamation in order to exploit one more harvest. Since then, Juneteenth has become a celebration of the day that all men and women became free. I am humbled to be the primary sponsor of legislation that made Juneteenth a state holiday in New Hampshire in 2019. I thank my fellow co-sponsors, Senator Fuller Clark, Senator Martha Hennessy, Senator Kahn, Senator Soucy, Senator Waters, Representative Long, Representative Comey, Representative Harriet Gathright, and Representative DiLorenzo. I would also like to recognize a young man named Jordan Thompson. Jordan's vision was to make Juneteenth a holiday in New Hampshire, not just for one day, as proclaimed by our governor, but a holiday to be acknowledged and celebrated each and every year. Today, Juneteenth is a national holiday, showing just how far we've come as a country. But as we celebrate today, remember we have so much more left to accomplish. The fight for civil rights is not over. We must protect our teachers and allow them to teach honest history. We are all enriched when we embrace our shared history, the good and the bad. We need to ensure our criminal justice system provides equal justice for all, and we need to protect the fundamental right to vote, which is under attack as we speak. That work starts by committing to vote on Election Day this November, because everyone, regardless of their race, has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you, and happy Juneteenth once again.
All right, thank you very much for that. June is a special part of the June is a special month for another part of our Democratic family. For more than 50 years, Pride Month has been a time when we celebrate the LGBTQ community. We mark the struggles of those who have worked towards equality and celebrate the achievements of leaders who have done so much to give this community a voice. Here to talk about our Pride Month, I would like to introduce Mr. Carlos Cardona.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Cardona. I am the Secretary of the New Hampshire Democratic Party State Convention, but also, importantly, a Laconia Democrat, a Belknap County Democrat, a Latino caucus member, a Stonewall Dems caucus member, and proud to stand here on the shoulders of immigrants and refugees and indigenous people that came before me. I am here to introduce someone who has consistently worked to better the lives of the LGBTQIA+ community. Having received the Pink Triangle Award from UNH in 2008 for his work on inclusivity and diversity, and as a lifelong educator and a multiple awards recipient for his ability to lead, advocate, and transform education in New Hampshire. Our next guest, my friend, is joining us to speak about why pride is important here in New Hampshire. There is so much to be proud about, and we know that New Hampshire Democrats are working to advocate for the rights of LGBTQIA+ community who have seen dangerous affronts to our rights and legislatively here in the Granite State, elsewhere across the country. It is my great pleasure to introduce you, my friend, first openly gay mayor in New Hampshire, in New Hampshire's history. Please welcome Mayor Dana Hilliard and our next Executive Council member.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you. We are a nation of hope. We are a nation of dreams. We're a nation of color and diversity. The 246 years of success of the American experiment has been built upon the foundation amassed by the threads which we compile as the nation we call home. Each of us comes to the table with our own unique thread. Our threads are interwoven, adding to the beauty of our nation's masterpiece. We come forth with our talents, our struggles, our experiences, our love. We add to the strength of society, the strength of the creed, as we continue the journey forward to forge a society we promised we would build. A society that protects, a society that honors, a society that validates and celebrates the differences which we draw from its freedoms and liberty, from its breath. For 246 years, we have continued our march towards our destiny, our march towards becoming our brothers and sisters' keepers, and our march towards the equality we echoed from the four corners of the world on that hot day in Philadelphia. We have overcome some of the demons which have torn the very fabric that we have created. The savagery of slavery, the denial of the right of suffrage for women, the oppression of immigrants, the disparity of Jim Crow. 246 years later, our nation continues to move forward as we march. We march together, ensuring that the inalienable rights bestowed to us by the Creator and reaffirmed by our independence will continue to be protected for us all. This month, we celebrate, we honor, and we echo our pride. We celebrate as members of the LGBTQ+ community who have continued to carry the torch of justice despite the acts of bigotry and violence. We celebrate how far we have journeyed from the closets of oppression to the legislative halls of government. We say thank you. Thank you to those who stood before us, those that took the jeers, that took the barrage of hate and the punches. Thank you to people like our chairman, Ray Buckley, whose strength through the harassment and bullying of his childhood ensured that Chris Pappas could serve openly in the United States Congress and that I could serve as mayor and educational leader of Somersworth. Mr. Chairman, thank you. We say thank you. Thank you to former State Senator and Representative Jim Splain, whose commitments and effort brought forward marriage equality to the state of New Hampshire long before the courts had ordered it. We celebrate this month, celebrate Representatives Jerry Cannon, Lisa Bunker, Stacey Marie Langton, and Josh Query, who are transgender or gender non-binary, who continue our march forward, ensuring that all of us together today can celebrate their love and contribute to the society and reaffirm our promise of the protection of the rights we are entitled to. This month we celebrate. We celebrate from the gains from Ed Butler, who led efforts in the House for transgendered rights, to the late Marlene Deshane, the first out lesbian elected to the New Hampshire House of Representatives. We celebrate, we honor, from Nick Panagopoulos, the youngest out LGBTQ+ person elected legislator at 19 in 2020, and we celebrate so many more. From Mo Baxley to Dover City Councilor Robbie Hinkle, we celebrate. We celebrate each gain, we celebrate each step, we celebrate each march for all. The colors of our rainbow flag remind us how diverse our community is, how diverse our nation is. Each color shines in its own unique way. Yet when we are sewn together, we become inseparable, illuminating the sky for all to see. This month, this Pride, we celebrate how far we have come and remind ourselves as a community and nation how far we must journey. because we will march. We will march for every person within our nation until each person is promised and delivered those rights we said we would deliver on July 4th, 1776. Because the march for equality will never end until every person is treated with human dignity and they are promised those rights that we will deliver upon. This month, let the colors of the rainbow shine. Let it continue to shine this month as we celebrate the diversity that makes our party so strong, our state so strong, and our nation so strong. This month, let us celebrate each other and all the fine qualities each of us continue to bring to that wonderful quilt we call life. Happy Pride, Democrats. Happy Pride, New Hampshire. Happy Pride, United States of America. Let that rainbow flag keep shining. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Mayor Hilliard. I can't wait to sit at the Executive Council table with you. I have the pleasure next to introduce our future, very passionate young leaders, and they're going to give us an update on what they've been doing. So please welcome to the stage New Hampshire High School Democrat President, Hunter Porter.
Thank you, Alderwoman Kelly. As she said, my name is Hunter Porter, and I am the chair of the New Hampshire High School Democrats. And today I'm here to update you on the activity of all of our youth organizations in the state. Before I begin, I just want to say that I am honored and humbled to be speaking in front of you all today. Looking out and seeing so many dedicated Democrats who have committed themselves to the hard work of organizing their friends, neighbors, and communities for years is truly inspiring. It is exciting to join you all in that venture as the young Democrats, college Democrats, and high school Democrats all work together to ensure young people have a seat at the table in New Hampshire. The past few years have been challenging for all of us, but that has not deterred us from stepping up to be the change we want to see in New Hampshire. All three youth organizations have been full steam ahead, supporting young Democrats running for office, getting young people involved in the party, and getting out on the doors. In last year's municipal elections, the New Hampshire Young Democrats supported 23 young candidates, 19 of whom were elected, including our convention co-chairs today, Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly and School Committeeman Argyropoulos. In this year's midterms, there are 68 young Democratic candidates running for office, including 63 state rep candidates, 2 for state senate, and 1 for executive council. The mission to recruit, train, and support young Democrats running for office is certainly being carried out. The college Democrats are also hard at work all over the state to make sure that young people in New Hampshire are aware of their right to vote and going out to turnout in November. The right to vote, especially young people's right to vote, is constantly under threat from New Hampshire Republicans, and that is why we are going out to organize our peers out in November. And now on to the youngest, and dare I say coolest members of our party, the high school Democrats. As we all know, high schoolers can't vote, so instead we turn out to mobilize, which is precisely what we did this year. We campaigned for our municipal candidates, fought a far-right extremist legislature, and advocated for New Hampshire's youth. Last year, we were instrumental in canvassing for our municipal candidates and ensuring their wins across the state. During this legislative session, we sent testimony on over 20 different bills. We also continued to speak up against Sununu's oppressive abortion ban and repeated attacks on public education. We look forward to mobilizing high schoolers to canvass and phone bank to help elect Tom Sherman, re-elect our federal delegation, and take back the New Hampshire House and Senate. Young Democrats around the state are organizing, mobilizing, and stepping up to run for office to address pressing issues for our generation and usher in the future we all desire. Thank you.
All right, I might be a little bit biased as a public school teacher, but I think students are the absolute best. They just show so much optimism, so much determination, so much drive, and they really do inspire us all on a day in and day out basis. So thank you again, Hunter, for those remarks. This year, we have been fortunate to have people from across the state introduce resolutions to honor those we have lost and fight for the issues they hold dear. Here to give the report from the Resolutions Committee, please welcome Committee Chair Senator Betty Lasky.
Good afternoon, Democrats. It's afternoon. As second vice chair of the New Hampshire Democratic Party, it's my honor and privilege to serve as the chair of the Resolutions Committee. The Resolutions Committee is tasked with collecting resolutions that celebrate the accomplishments and victories that we have made over the last 2 years. They are a call to action to support issues that we must fight for and bring to light vital issues that all of our communities are facing. I want to thank the members of the committee who worked diligently at this task. Lynn Thomas, Representative Drew Fox, Honorable Biddy Irwin, Honorable Henry Noel, Alan Raff, and Honorable Mike Rollo. Thank you all. This year, we received resolutions that reflected Democratic issues, including celebrating the hard work our federal delegation has done and continues to do, fighting for a woman's right to control her own body if the Supreme Court overturns Roe, and happily celebrating the momentous occasion seeing Justice Jackson confirmed to the highest court. The Resolution Committee also has the sole task of honoring many Granite State leaders we have lost over the last 2 years. To honor all of the people we have lost, I would like to read their names, followed by a moment of silence. Honorable Edwina Elaine Ahern, John Amaral Jr., Carol Appel, Honorable Elizabeth Blanchard, Honorable Paula Bradley, Carol T. Burney, William Cashin, Senator Norman Champagne, Honorable Claire Clark, Hiram Cornell, Representative Robert Rennie Cushing, Honorable Joe Allen Orcott D'Ambroso, Representative Marlene DeShane, Coro Kanian, John DeStazo, Honorable Thomas Donovan, Thomas Fagan, Honorable Janet Fortnum, Honorable Barbara Connor French, Carolyn French, Sylvia Elizabeth Gale, Ethel Bullcroft Hubert, Senator Harold Janeway, Sheldon Krasker, Martin Marty Lafert, Representative Douglas Lay, Honorable Sid Lovett, William Bud Martin, Honorable Paul McEachern, Honorable Cynthia McGovern, Jonathan Childs Meny, Marie Poirier, Senator Robert Preston, Representative Catherine D. Rogers, Representative Barbara Shaw, John Shea, Diana Sol Seifert, Honorable Philip Phil Spagnuolo Jr., Mary Lou Strickland, Honorable Cynthia Page Sweeney, Mary Toomey, Honorable Shirley J. White, and John R. White. And just last week, we lost a devoted Democrat who worked tirelessly for Democrats in Nashua, in the state of New Hampshire, and nationwide, Joe Gramazon. May they rest in peace, and may their memories be a blessing. Thank you. We have a moment of silence. Thank you. As we honor these leaders, the best way to continue their tireless work for democratic values is by electing Democrats this November. We ask that you support all of these crucial resolutions and ensure that Democrats win in November and take back New Hampshire. Our democracy depends on it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Betty. Next, we're going to have the platform committee report. Our platform is more than words on a piece of paper. It is a statement of who we are as a party. Our platform committee this year did tremendous work to make sure that our platform represents who we are. And here to give the platform committee report is my senator and a total powerhouse, Cindy Rosenwald.
Good afternoon, New Hampshire Democrats. You'll be happy to know, I think, that I just sat here and cut my speech by about 2/3. But I am pleased to present an overview of the platform for 2022. It's an important document that reflects the values New Hampshire Democrats share and is a vision that our candidates can run on. New Hampshire Democrats put people first. We know our economy has to work for all of us, not just those at the top. We know that quality public services are foundational to the common good. No matter our circumstances, where we live, or who we are, we support one another and welcome all who share these values. Democrats know life in New Hampshire has become more expensive. We understand the financial strains individuals and families are experiencing and what it will take to ease those financial pressures. A strong economy that works for all Granite Staters depends on an inclusive, thriving democracy where all voices are heard, welcomed, and protected. What I just read is the preamble to the platform, and it grew out of what New Hampshire Democrats told us this winter and spring as the platform committee held 12 hearings across the state. We had one hearing for each county, a combined hearing for Manchester and Nashua, and one statewide hearing. We heard from hundreds of Democrats from the seacoast to the Upper Valley, and from the North Country to the Massachusetts border. Holding these hearings remotely allowed for our committee members to attend more hearings than ever before and listen to the values that Democrats like you hold dear. On top of the hundreds of Democrats who attended the hearings, we received a lot of written testimony as well. The committee came together after the last hearing and decided on 11 planks for the platform. It is printed in the program, so I'm just going to name the planks, and this is where I totally cut my speech. Protecting democracy and voting rights, economic building blocks, education, diversity makes us stronger, supporting the LGBTQ plus community, healthcare, public safety and justice, climate, energy and agriculture, fiscal responsibility, support for our veterans and military families, and first in the nation primary. These planks are all equally important, and we're committed to each and every one of the points made in the platform. I want to thank the Platform Committee for its dedication to creating the platform this year, and I would like to acknowledge them now. Co-chairs Bill Bolton and Matt Girding, Councilor Cindy Warmington, Luz Bay, Representative Jerry Cannon, Laura Courier-Carty, Dan Chartrand, Representative Manny Espedia, the Honorable Melanie LeVesque, Representative the Honorable Sue Ford, Aaron George Kelly, Representative Jerry Knurk, Ruth Larson, Representative Andrew Manival, Sumithi Madure, Teresa Moeller, Representative Kate Murray, Ellis Robinson, and Paul Robitaille. And thank you, New Hampshire Democrats, for your commitment to work to make the Granite State a welcoming and accepting state for all who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The work of winning elections truly happens at the grassroots. Knocking doors, making phone calls, talking with your friends and neighbors. This is how good people get elected. The people who are making that happen are the outstanding staff and volunteers with Organize NH. Here to give a report on the work of Organize NH is Organizing Director Amy Lobb.
Good afternoon, everyone. As has been said, my name is Amy. I am the organizing director here at Organize NH, the coordinated campaign to elect Democrats this year. I'm so thankful to be here with everyone today and to be around so many amazing, dedicated Democrats who are so ready to leave it all out on the field, not just to re-elect our incredible federal delegation, but also take back our government in Concord. And I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about where I've come from, because while I might not be from New Hampshire originally, I think my story and the story of my hometown is one that is the story of a lot of people and the story of where they grew up. I grew up in a really small coastal town that was built by the fishing and timber industries of, several decades ago, where things were plentiful and people had good union jobs. There were boats coming in and out of the harbor every day. And when those industries started drying up and becoming more inaccessible to everyday working Americans, my town really struggled to pay for basic services that we really do sometimes take for granted. A good example of that is education. At the end of every school year, when I was in high school, my friends and I would get together and speculate, what teachers we thought were going to be let go that year, or what classes would no longer be offered, because that was just something that happened every year to make sure that the school budget could continue to, keep the lights on. And when I was a senior in high school, we actually went to 4 days a week in order to, again, save money, meaning that children who, I was a senior, so it only impacted me for 1 year, but if you were, in kindergarten or first grade, after multiple years of school, would have lost out on months, if not years, of education. And when I went to college and started talking with my friends about their experiences, they would talk about things that they got a chance to do, things that they did in their wealthier school districts, and made me so angry because it made me feel like the people who I grew up with were resigned to not experience the American dream simply because of where we were from. And it doesn't have to be that way. It won't be that way here in New Hampshire if we can re-elect these incredible Democratic elected officials and take back our governments in Concord to pass the policies and the values I know we all share. And that might sound like a really hard thing to do. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to take a lot of work. But just remember, in 2020, there were just about 750 votes that separated Democrats keeping control of the state house and Republicans flipping it. That's 750 votes across the state. Those are 750 voters that we can talk to, and we can convince that Democrats are the best people for them and for their families. And we do that by knocking on doors, we do that by making phone calls, talking to our neighbors, getting out there and making sure that our message is heard. We are going to be having a huge weekend of action this upcoming Saturday and Sunday next week, and I am so, so excited for the opportunities we have to go talk to voters. If you have just a couple of hours of your time, regardless of where you live across the state, come out and knock doors with us. I promise you will not regret it. These conversations with voters are so valuable, and they really do change their minds and perspectives. And if you can't knock on doors, we make a lot of phone calls. We are calling voters all across the state every single day, and we will get you set up with that as well. My friend and coworker Emma, who is our voter protection director, was supposed to be here with me today, but is unfortunately under the weather, unable to attend. But she is also looking to build out our voter protection team, to bring poll observers, to recruit people to work with the hotline, do everything that we can to make sure that voters have access to the information they need. So if voter contact is not your thing, I'm a little biased, I think it's the best thing in the world, but making sure we're protecting the rights of our ballots and voters is absolutely critical as well. And there's information in all of your bags on how to sign up for that if that is something you're interested in. Again, next weekend, we have a huge weekend of action. We are doing stuff all across the state, and we really, really want to see you there. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. I am really, really looking forward to the work I know we can do together and the success we will collectively have in November this year.
Alrighty, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Today's convention was an important opportunity to come together as Democrats and reaffirm our commitment to fighting for New Hampshire.
We're grateful to all those who participated both in person and remotely, with special thanks to Marty Walsh and Governor Pritzker for joining us. Thanks to all of you, we are fired up and ready to take on the elections in 2022 and continue to build Democratic power throughout the Granite State.
We'd like to thank Manchester Memorial High School for letting us use their facility today. We'd also like to thank the staff of the New Hampshire Democratic Party, the speakers, the volunteers for their hard work in making today possible, for your dedication to our party and the New Hampshire values we hold dear. We know that when we come together, so much is possible here in the Granite State, and we must continue to fight for reproductive rights, strong public schools, workers' rights, and an equitable future for all.
Peter is right. When Democrats unite, the sky's the limit. So thank you all who make us this Democratic Party. We look forward to working alongside you to elect Democrats in 2022 and beyond. Have a great day. I have to move to adjourn. So moved? All those in favor? Aye. Woo!
Great work. Good job.
Thank you.